Hi, and welcome to this program. My name is Anke, and I will be your guide and one of your teachers through this exciting journey. Since you're here, I probably don't have to convince you that social media is shaping how we live and do business today. Social media has the power to change lives and businesses beyond recognition. It can launch products into stratospheric success in brand new ways and give immediate access to millions of customers, literally delivering messages into their pockets. We learn of good news, sports results, births, birthdays, our friends' trips, weddings, first school days, latest dance moves and cookouts, all in the blink of an eye or the scroll of our thumb, and social media is what frames our reactions. It's the construct we use to connect to others and to tell our stories. Social media is a perfect medium for getting your story out there and for connecting with people. That's true for your personal story, but social media also offers a platform for businesses to connect to customers and potential customers, which has opened a whole new world for marketing. With social media, marketers can become part of the conversation, and when done well, social media marketing can help businesses launch products, generate sales, and provide excellent customer service. Good social media marketing involves making authentic connections and providing value through content and interaction. It's a bit of a mix between art and science, and this program will provide you with all the skills and tools you need to do it well. Whether you are looking to start a career in social media marketing, whether you work for a Fortune 500 company, a tiny little mom and pop shop, or are simply interested in marketing your own brand and story on social media, then this is the course for you. You don't need any experience to get started. We'll start from the very beginning. The only thing you need is an appetite for social media, willingness to put stories out there, and a Facebook or Instagram account. This program will look at all aspects of social media marketing, and we will cover all the important social media platforms. We'll focus quite a bit on Facebook and Instagram. These apps are central to the social media marketing world, and mastering those applications will set you up for future success. More than that, Meta has partnered with us to create this course, and we're delighted to have them on board. We'll cover the theory behind social media, and throughout this program, you'll also get cutting-edge, hands-on experience through working on our carefully curated projects. We've worked closely with the team at Meta to get a better understanding of the crucial steps that make social media marketers successful, and those are exactly the things you'll get to practice in our projects. These specially curated projects are a golden opportunity to put what you've learned into practice. And after you successfully complete them, you can even use them to create a portfolio to showcase your talents to future employers. Not only is this program wonderful fun, it will help you hone your content creation and social media marketing abilities, and it prepares you for entry-level roles as a social media marketer. Upon successful completion of the program, you will earn both the Coursera certification and the Meta Digital Marketing Associate certification. These certifications are valued by hiring managers across industries. It doesn't matter if you want to work for a sports team or for a movie studio, for a massive tech company or for a local photographer, these certifications matter because mastery of social media is essential for every business today. And employers love to see documented proof of what employees are capable of before hiring them. There are 6 courses in this program. The first course is an introduction to the social media landscape and will prepare you for your marketing journey. The second course is all about content development for social media and how businesses can build their presence and their brand and participate in a rich and meaningful way on social media platforms. The third course looks at the basics of advertising on social media. You learn how advertising on social media works and how you can use it to amplify your message and make it resonate deeply with your audience. In the fourth course, you'll learn how to build campaigns in Ads Manager, Meta's tool for advertising across Facebook and Instagram. In the 5th course, we look at how to measure the success of campaigns and further optimize them. And then finally, in the 6th course, you will complete a capstone project where you will build your portfolio representing the work you did throughout this course and telling your unique social media marketing campaign story. We'll offer the support you need to get you on your way, but your success in this program depends on you. Take your time going through all the videos, the practice quizzes, graded quizzes and projects. Participate in the discussions with your fellow students and keep in touch with us through discussion boards. And now we come to the most exciting part of any journey, the part where the real story begins. Good luck with the course. I'm so excited to see how you'll do with the project. Let the journey begin. Welcome to our course, Measure and Optimize Your Social Media Marketing Campaign. This is course number 5 in the Social Media Marketing Professional Certification Program created with Facebook. There are lots of decisions to be made when you set up social media marketing campaigns. And as you may have experienced, it's not always easy to make those decisions and understand what the impact will be on your final outcome. I often find myself wondering which creative will work best, which audience I should choose, when I should schedule my ads, and how I should divide up my budget across different channels. I try to make informed decisions, yet I also know that I may have to wait for some initial results to really understand whether my decisions were the right ones. But once those results come in, it helps if you have a blueprint that can guide you through the analysis. And that's what this course is all about. We'll focus on different tools that you can use to measure the results and the impact of your campaigns and evaluate whether your advertising budget was well spent. And we'll also spend some time talking about how you can best present your results and insights. In the first week, we'll look at the main metrics used in marketing to evaluate campaign results. We'll define the metrics and we'll look at the reports you can use to get the data to help you measure the results. The second week, we'll focus on how to measure the effectiveness of your advertising campaigns. Did they move the needle? Did they have the impact you wanted? Was your money well spent? We'll look at how experiments can help you out and how you can easily execute those in the Facebook platform. In the third week, we'll look at how you can optimize within a campaign, even while it is in flight, with A/B testing. And we'll also look at how you can optimize your budget across campaigns and platforms, as in most cases, your social media marketing campaigns are part of a broader marketing effort that involves advertising on different channels. We'll talk about media mix modeling and attribution modeling. And finally, we'll focus on how to tell a story with data. Summarizing your findings and presenting them in a compelling way is very important. After all, you want to make sure that you can showcase all the work you did throughout the building, execution, and analysis of your campaign. We'll give you a framework that will make it easy to put together the story of your campaign. Lots of exciting things to talk about, so let's get started. Hi, I'm Anke Oudenaert, and I'm one of the instructors in this Social Media Marketing Professional Certification Program. I love marketing, and I'm especially passionate about digital marketing. I started my digital marketing journey at Yahoo, quite a while back actually. For 8 years, I led their global marketing research team here in Silicon Valley. It was an exhilarating time. It opened my eyes to everything digital marketing has to offer, and it all came during a time the internet was fast developing, and I was in a front row seat to see it all happen. I'm a trained psychologist, and my master's is in consumer behavior and marketing, but Yahoo was definitely an equally important school to me. With what I learned about digital media and advertising, I started my own company together with a few friends, Jumptime. We focused on advertising and revenue optimization for publishers. Building a software company from scratch was fun and sure felt like a roller coaster. We sold the company to OpenX, an advertising technology company, and I worked with them to help them integrate our software. While working in these companies, I joined the faculty at the UCLA Anderson School of Management, where I've been teaching digital marketing and analytics in the MBA program. It's there that I found my passion for teaching. Over the past few years, I've combined my love for teaching, digital marketing, and building products into creating different online courses, together with our team here at Aptly. Our team has worked extensively with Facebook to help their teams create education programs. I'm very excited about this program. I can't wait to show you the power of social media marketing and see you use it to connect and get your story out there. There's so much opportunity in this space, and I think that, just like me, you'll love it. Working in social media is exciting and dynamic. Businesses are clamoring for experts in social media, and the number of jobs that require social media skills keeps growing. When you successfully finish this program, you'll receive 2 certifications, one from Coursera and one from Facebook, certifying your mastery of Ads Manager. These 2 certifications will be among the first things many employers look for, so you'll have a leg up in your job search. You'll also have the projects that you completed during your coursework, which will build up to a portfolio you can use to showcase your abilities to potential employers. So, you're probably curious as to what kinds of roles you'll be suitable for by the end of this program. Well, nearly every organization now has a social media presence, and many of these have entry-level positions available, where fresh ideas and a willingness to jump into new projects are highly desirable traits. Jobs in social media marketing roughly fall into 2 categories. First, there are a number of jobs that focus on social media management. In these jobs, you play a role in crafting a company's voice and social media personality. Jobs as a social media coordinator and an engagement coordinator, for instance. As a social media coordinator, you'll post to social media accounts and follow instructions from the director of social media. You could be working with a well-known brand or company or even a celebrity. An engagement coordinator is like a social media coordinator, but as well as posting to social media accounts and messaging followers, they're also responsible for guiding the online behavior of followers. You encourage followers to interact with your posts, and you respond to comments and react to trends in the broader social media space. This program also prepares you for a second category of jobs in social media marketing, namely jobs that focus on creating and managing paid advertising on social media. These jobs exist both in advertising agencies and on the client side. Social media marketing associate is one of the types of roles you'll find at an advertising agency. Working for agencies is a fun and dynamic way to put all you've learned to work. You'd be involved in creating advertising campaigns for different social media platforms. Agencies have multiple clients, and so you get to work on a wide number of different campaigns with many different goals and for many different companies. It's a wonderfully exciting way to break into social media advertising. Working as a social media marketing associate on the client side means you're working for one specific client or company. This could be anything from big brands like Adidas or Pepsi to smaller brands that rely heavily on social media. Roles you'll find here are similar as the ones you find in agencies, but you'd focus your advertising efforts on one brand, and you'd often work together with your counterparts on the agency side. Working on the client side is a fantastic way to really sink your teeth into one brand and to really focus on how to use your social media skills on that single brand. Of course, you might find that smaller companies have one person focusing on social media marketing who has to wear many hats and basically performs parts of all these jobs. Or you may decide to start your own business, in which case social media marketing skills will come in handy as you grow your business. In addition to the jobs I outlined so far, there are a myriad of other jobs available to those who master the art of social media, including bloggers, brand ambassadors, community managers, social media coordinators or associates, managers, directors, and social media copywriters. While many companies are looking to hire social media marketers to join their team, you could also decide that you'd like to be a freelancer. Social media marketing lends itself very well to part-time or freelance roles. Say you could work on writing content for social media marketing as a freelancer, supporting a larger company who may have an occasional need for some extra help. Or you could help out a small firm with the management of their Facebook page and Instagram account on a part-time basis. In other words, social media marketing offers great opportunities for flexible jobs for those who need or desire them. Finally, great social media marketers generally like dynamic environments where they can learn from others. They have a love of lifelong learning, are keen to work with others, yet also display a knack for rolling up their sleeves and getting the job done on their own. If this sounds like you, then you could be ideally suited to a job in social media marketing, and this program will prepare you to start your career. Before we dive in, I want to share a quick but important message. All of our interactions in this course take place right here on Coursera, where we've created a welcoming community for you to ask questions, share insights, and connect with other learners. Our community offers you the opportunity to connect with and get inspired by other learners worldwide who share similar interests, backgrounds, or career paths. Make the most of your course by getting your questions answered whenever you're stuck. Engage directly with Meta and Apply staff to gain insights and support along the way. And as a reminder, we don't use external messaging apps like WhatsApp for any part of this course. If anyone outside the Coursera platform claims to be me or another instructor and invites you to join an external group, it's likely a scam. While social media can have its challenges, our support team is here for you if you ever have concerns. You can always reach out to us at support@apply.zendesk.com. I'm genuinely excited to have you here, and I look forward to an amazing journey together. Welcome to our first week in this course focused on measurement and optimization. Measurement is a crucial part of social media marketing. Whether you just focus on organic, free social media marketing or have added paid advertising to the mix, you'll want to know whether your efforts are paying off. Fortunately, there are tools that can help you with analyzing your social media efforts, and these tools can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. You don't need to do all the math, but it helps to have a good understanding of which metrics to focus on and the common approaches marketers use when it comes to measurement. This week, we'll focus on establishing which metrics can help you evaluate your results, where you can get the data to measure, and how common marketing metrics are calculated. At the end of this week, you'll know how to evaluate the results of your social media campaigns in relation to its costs and how to evaluate its success. The time has come to figure out the biggest question that all of our work has led up to. Was our campaign successful? We could say it was because we sold some of our products, or had some traffic to our website, or got more sign-ups to our newsletter. But like we've discussed in past lessons, if you don't actually measure your results or even know what to measure, you won't be able to answer the question, was the campaign successful? In this lesson, we'll go over ways to evaluate how well your campaign performed based on the objectives and settings you choose in Ads Manager. But first, let's review some of the ways we set goals for our campaigns and determine what we want to measure. Before we start sending our ads out into the world, we need to put some thought behind what we want them to accomplish. In an earlier course in this program, we went over how to create SMART goals for our campaign, or goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. For example, you might set a goal of 100 new product sales in the month after a new product launch, or a goal of increasing revenue by $20,000 in the next year over the last one, or a goal gaining 1,000 new followers by year's end. Each of these goals is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Having SMART goals in mind sets the foundation upon which to build the next step of measuring results: KPIs. A KPI, or a key performance indicator, is a metric or set of metrics you'd look at to help you evaluate if you met your goal. A KPI should be measurable in that it tracks a specific number of something. It should be directional in that it can go up or down and relate directly to your goal. KPIs generally fall under three main categories. The first are awareness KPIs, which include metrics like followers, total reach, and impressions. These generally are the result of activities that get people aware of your brand, or what you could refer to as top-of-the-funnel campaigns, or the beginning of the customer journey. Another category of KPIs focuses on consideration or engagement, measuring ways that customers interact with your brand through likes, shares, comments, and clicks. This reflects activity further into the customer journey as the relationship with the customer, interactions, and trust begin. The last set of KPIs looks at conversions, or actions taken by your customer, like downloading an app or buying a product. This is the end goal of the funnel or journey. For example, as with our goal of 100 new product sales, we would look at KPIs that track conversions or actions. For our goal of getting 1,000 new followers, we would look at KPIs that track followers, reach, and impressions. If you studied Facebook's Ads Manager in our previous courses, you've probably already noticed that these categories of KPIs match the objectives you can set in Ads Manager. This helps you to align your goals and your KPIs with the objectives and optimizations Ads Manager offers. Awareness objectives focus on reach and getting your brand out into the world. Consideration objectives are further into the customer journey, and they help you achieve goals like increased traffic and engagement, app installs, video views, lead generation, and messaging. Conversion objectives help you drive sales through e-commerce or store traffic. As we've seen in past lessons, once you select an objective for your campaign, Ads Manager will give you settings options that will help you optimize your ads to achieve those objectives, like optimizing for link clicks for a traffic objective or impressions for a reach objective. It's important to understand how your goals, KPIs, and campaign objectives work together to focus on what you hope to achieve. In order to get the results you expect, you want to have your campaign objectives line up with your goals. For example, if your goal was to increase sales by a certain percentage through your site, you would set up a conversion objective, and Ads Manager would optimize for conversions. You wouldn't set up a traffic objective in which Ads Manager would maximize for link clicks. More traffic doesn't necessarily equate to higher sales. A traffic objective would give you results, but they wouldn't be the right results and couldn't help you determine how successful your campaign was. Let's look at some examples of measuring results based on goals and objectives. DCB Cleaning offers cleaning services for small and medium-sized businesses. Recently, they launched a new service called Snack Wall, where businesses can set up a wall of snacks for their employees and use a subscription service to keep it stocked. Because this isn't necessarily an add-on to their cleaning services, but could be a whole new segment, DCB wants to raise awareness and engagement around their brand and this new product. But having a goal of more engagement isn't going to be enough. DCB should start with a SMART goal, say, an increase of engagement of 20% on their Facebook page over the next 3 months, knowing that engagement means interest in learning more about their product, which may convert into customers. DCB would then track engagement KPIs like comments, likes, and shares on their Facebook page, which they would track through Facebook Insights. And if DCB ran ads, they could set an engagement objective for their campaign. Ads Manager would then give them optimization options for post engagement, daily unique reach, or impressions. Once DCB starts running ads, their results dashboard in Ads Manager could precisely tell them if they met their goal. We can look at another example from Kalle and Ivy, who recently launched a service on their site where users can sign up for bouquet subscriptions, create their own bouquet, or order flowers for same-day pickup. They want more people to learn about the service, so they set a SMART goal of 10,000 unique website visitors over the next month. They would track a consideration KPI like website traffic. Then they can set up a traffic objective for their ads, which will give them the option to optimize for link clicks, landing page views, or daily unique reach. As you begin evaluating the success of your campaigns, make sure that your goals, KPIs, and campaign objectives are aligned so you can better track and pinpoint your results. But don't forget that we also have to factor in advertising costs when we evaluate our results. We'll look at some measurements in our next lesson, which will include return on ad spend, customer lifetime value, and cost per result. That will give us more specific ways to evaluate how successful our campaign was against how much we spent. Now that we're asking, was this campaign successful? We're going to need data to be able to evaluate our results. We've already talked about goal setting and choosing the right objectives for our ad campaign. And in the next few lessons, we're going to look at specific measurements we can use to evaluate our campaigns. But we can't make any evaluations on how we're doing, or calculate any measurements, or know where we stand unless we have data. In this lesson, we're going to go over where to find data that's going to help you answer the question, was this campaign successful? The saying goes, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. The good news is that in most cases, you actually don't have to measure it. There's a world of tools that will measure the data for you. You just have to know how to read the metrics and what to look for. If you've never analyzed data before, we'll give you a few measurements in our next lessons that you can use to evaluate how much you spent on your advertising, what your return was per action taken, how much we're going to spend to acquire a customer, and how much a customer will spend with us. But the good thing about analyzing data, which may just seem like a bunch of numbers, is that you're going to choose what you want to look for. This is why setting goals for your campaigns and checking KPIs is important. For example, if your goal is to increase unique visitors to your website, you don't need to try to comprehensively evaluate all the data found on your analytics dashboard. You just need to look at the unique visitor numbers, if you know where to find it. Analytics dashboards will often allow you to customize the data you're looking at as well. So if you know that you want to track something very specific, like the sequence of pages a customer visits through a website or where they're entering from, you can set it up to give you data on just that. Again, you're seeking out answers to the questions you've already formulated in advance. There are times, however, when you would want to look at your data more comprehensively without any objectives in mind, just to see if there are any patterns or anything that stands out. It's worth it to do this type of data exploration from time to time. For example, you may be looking at web traffic to a specific page for the duration of a certain campaign. But maybe there was a jump in traffic to that page outside of the time of the campaign that you didn't anticipate, but now you could investigate. If you're looking for patterns or outliers, you may stumble across something in the data that may prompt new insight into your audience or generate a new campaign direction. Let's look at the different places where you can find data that will help you with your evaluations. We'll start with Facebook Ads Manager and its reporting dashboard. You may remember it from our previous course. You'll see a list of your campaigns, and you'll already see some useful data like results, reach, impressions, cost per result, and more. These numbers may be enough to help you evaluate your campaign already, but if you want to drill down into specific metrics, you can add columns to show you more information. If you click on Customize Columns, Facebook will offer you a large number of options to choose from, so you can get more granular in your reporting. Another place to look for data is Facebook Insights, which we've explored before. This will track all the activity on your Facebook page, like changes in your number of followers, your reach, and actions taken on your page. These numbers include both paid and organic traffic, so you'll be able to see the effects of your advertising campaigns here, as well as the effect of any organic content you've put out. We've talked before about Instagram's Insight to help you evaluate how your content is doing, to learn more about your audience, and to see how any promoted posts did. Other social media sites like Twitter and Pinterest are going to have their own analytics dashboards that you can utilize to give you insights into your posts, who your audience is, and how they're engaging with you. And they also have dashboards to give you information about the results of your advertising campaigns if you're running them on these platforms. If you don't want to check each social media dashboard individually, there are plenty of websites and software that will aggregate your accounts so you can manage them in one place. Sites like Hootsuite, Buffer, Sprout Social, Sendable, SEMrush, and CoSchedule not only give you options to create, schedule, and track your social media posts in one place, but some also offer ads management as well. If you want to focus on advertising exclusively, there are sites like Quaya and Adespresso that will offer ads manager-like ad creation, placements, and scheduling for Facebook and Instagram. Like each social media platform, your website platform may have its own analytics, like Squarespace or Wix, for instance. There, you'll be able to see your traffic numbers, your most popular content, how people found your website, etc. WordPress sites don't have their own native analytics, so you'd need to turn to Google Analytics. Regardless of your website host, I suggest you use Google Analytics. Google Analytics will give you all the data you need to understand who's visiting your website, if they're coming in from your social media accounts, through search or through your advertising efforts or other sources. You'll also get information on your users' behavior on your site and more. You can also create custom dashboards to track specific behaviors. To use Google Analytics for your website, you'll need to integrate Google Analytics tracking code, which you can find on the Google Analytics site. Adobe Analytics can offer similar data tracking and highly customizable reporting as well, but whereas Google Analytics is a free tool, Adobe Analytics isn't. When combined, these tools are going to give you a lot of data. That data is going to give you insight into who your customers are, what content they're seeing of yours, and if they're taking action on it. How they're finding you, how much time they're spending on your site, what kind of content they like to engage with, and more. Above all, the insights you gather from this data will help you make informed decisions around your marketing initiatives. So far, we've looked at the metrics that can help us evaluate the results of our campaign. That's an important part of understanding whether our campaigns were effective. But even if our campaign is achieving the results we would like to see, in order to get a better picture of how successful our campaign really was, we should also be looking at the cost of our advertising. So instead of asking, was my campaign successful, we should also ask, did my campaign pay off? In our next few videos, we're going to look at some ways to evaluate data and spending to take the cost of our results into account. This will let us determine whether we maximized our marketing budget or if we can find ways to improve our outcomes while lowering our costs. We'll start with looking at our return on ad spend, or ROAS. ROAS is simply a way to find out how much revenue you made on your advertising versus what you spend on it. The calculation for ROAS is revenue made from the ads divided by advertising costs of those ads. For example, if you spent $1 on advertising and made $10 off of that advertising, your ROAS is 10, or it can be expressed as 10 to 1, or 10x. So this advertising made 10 times what we spend on it, which would be pretty good. But if you spent $1 on advertising and made $2 off of that advertising, your ROAS would be 2. This number might tell you that there's room for improvement. That's why simply calculating results without costs can only get you so far. Why is it important to know ROAS? It's a good indicator of knowing the effectiveness of your campaign. And not only if it's profitable, but how profitable. And you never want your ROAS to break even at 1-to-1 or be lower than 1, because that means you're losing money on your campaign. Depending on the objectives and results you want for your campaign, you may have a target ROAS based on past experience, or you may be okay with a ROAS being small in certain situations. ROAS can also help you decide if it would be cost-effective to repeat that campaign or make adjustments as needed. Let's look at a more detailed example of ROAS from our flower shop Calla and Ivy. Imra ran a campaign advertising seasonal fall leaf wreaths, selling for $50 apiece. She spent $250 on the campaign and as a result sold 15 wreaths. 15 wreaths at $50 apiece would have a result of $750 total revenue. So the ROAS here would be $750 divided by 250, or a result of 3. This means that Calla and Ivy made 3 times what it spent on advertising. Now, where do you find the data for this calculation? Knowing exactly how much you spent on an ad campaign sounds like an easy number to track, but how would you know which sales came from that specific ad campaign and not from either another campaign or organic traffic? That's where the Facebook Pixel comes into play, which we learned about in our last course. Setting up the pixel on your site allows Ads Manager to track sales that result directly from your ad campaign. This makes calculating ROAS incredibly easy. Let's look at another example that's a little less straightforward from DCB Cleaning. Since they're a cleaning services company that works on long-term contracts, it takes them longer to close a sale, and it's not as defined as a 1-to-1 wreath sale. The owner, James, has been running campaigns on Facebook focusing on lead generation. So far, he's spent $2,000 on his campaign and generated 100 leads. So would the ROAS be 100 divided by 2,000? Not quite, because each variable needs to be a value, in this case, a dollar value. Not every one of those leads will result in a sale, but James knows that each lead that purchases services will result in $2,000 worth of revenue. If 10% of leads typically convert, James will get 10 customers from that 100 leads number, which will result in $20,000 total revenue. So the ROAS would be $20,000 over the $2,000 spent on the ads. So the ROAS for this campaign would be 10, or 10 times the revenue spent. As we saw in the previous example, sometimes advertising can be directly related to revenue realized later on. Calculating ROAS may include ad spend from different parts of the customer journey or funnel. For instance, spending on campaigns that generate awareness, different campaigns that generate engagement or consideration, and campaigns that get a customer to the final sale. Let's look at an example that illustrates this concept of advertising to all parts of the funnel. When Carlos launched the website for Inu and Neko, he was focused on generating sales around his pet accessories and food. So, Carlos created campaigns focused on different aspects of the customer journey. Awareness campaigns that let people know about their brand, consideration campaigns that focused on driving traffic to the website and increased engagement, and conversion campaigns that focused on selling their products. The group of campaigns ran concurrently for over 3 months and generated 1 million impressions, 8,000 website visits, and 1,000 purchases, resulting in 30,000 in revenue. Inu and Neko spent 7,000 on awareness campaigns, 6,000 on consideration campaigns, and 6,000 on the conversion campaigns, for a total of 19,000. What would Inu and Neko's ROAS be? It would be the 30,000 of revenue made divided by the 19,000 spent on the ad campaigns, for a ROAS of 1.58. Before we go any further, you may be asking, is ROAS the same as return on investment or ROI? No, it's not. ROAS focuses on just the revenue you made generated from a specific ad campaign and is most helpful when evaluating your advertising budget and its effectiveness. ROI looks at bigger picture spending and profit and takes into account the total costs related to advertising and sales, like how much the product took to make. There are times, though, when you need to look at ROI instead of ROAS to give you a better picture of your advertising effectiveness. For example, if we wanted to calculate the ROI of Kala and Ivy's fall leaf wreaths, we wouldn't just look at the sales, but how much it cost Imra to make the wreaths, including supplies and time. We previously calculated the ROAS at 3, which was a revenue of 750 over 250 in ad spend. But what if it took Imra $500 to make the wreaths? Her profit from the wreaths would actually only be 250. So if she spent 250 on advertising, she wouldn't have actually made any profit from the wreaths. ROI is a metric that takes all the money you spend into account, so it doesn't only look at the advertising dollars you spend and the revenue you get in return. Instead, it looks at all the money you spend and the net return or your profit. The formula for ROI, or return on investment, is revenue minus investments divided by those investments. And investments include the money you spent on advertising and sales, as well as the cost of goods sold. So you basically look at the revenue minus all the money you spent to generate that revenue. And you divide that again by all the money you spent. Let's look again at our example for Kala and Ivy. The revenue Imra generated was $750. And to get there, she made a total investment of $500 plus $250, or $750. So in this case, her return on investment is 0. Now, it is possible that the $500 Imra spent to create the wreaths partly went into getting a first prototype created. So, if Imra sold more wreaths, the costs would go up, but maybe not as much. Let's say that Imra sells 200 wreaths and it costs her $800 to create them. Imra is also able to optimize her campaigns a bit and she spent only $2,000 on advertising. Let's take a look at what the ROI looks like now. Every wreath sells at $50 and 200 wreaths were sold for a total revenue of $10,000. Imra invested $800 to create the wreaths and she also invested $2,000 in advertising. So her total investment to generate $10,000 in revenue was $2,800. That means her ROI is $10,000 minus $2,800 divided by $2,800, and that equals 2.57. Or, in other words, for every dollar Imra spends on selling reeds, she gets $2.57 in return. That's a good ROI, so Imra can feel confident to keep selling reeds at this cost. As you can see from the Scala and Ivy example, it is important to look at other measurements along with ROAS, because knowing that you had a ROAS of 5 may mean nothing to you unless you know how to evaluate what 5 really means. Now that you've evaluated your ROAS, how can you go about improving it? Because ROAS is based around just 2 variables, there are only really 2 actions you can take to improve the ratio. Either lower the cost of your ads to get a better return, or increase the revenue you generate. Ideally, you could do both. You can do this by looking to see if you're wasting time targeting the wrong audience, or by not using the right ad placements. You may also have a bidding strategy that doesn't work for what you're trying to accomplish. You can also look at ways to simplify the buying experience once the customer gets to your website. In other words, make it easier for the user to take the action you want them to take. In our next videos, we'll go over more examples of how to calculate ROAS, and then move into other kinds of measurements like customer lifetime value and cost per result. So far, we've talked about how to evaluate results from your Facebook ad campaigns to see if we achieved our objectives. We looked at how to calculate our return on ad spend to see how much revenue we made on those ads. We touched on the bigger picture measurement of return on investment. And we've looked at how calculating the customer lifetime value can help you look at your bigger picture marketing efforts as well. Now we're going to drill down into another measurement, cost per result. That will continue to help us answer the questions, was our campaign successful and was our campaign worth it? Let's go over what a result is again within the context of setting up our campaigns in Ads Manager. A result is the action we want our audience to take based on the objective we set for our campaign, which are based on our goals. For example, if we want to drive traffic to our website, we set a traffic objective, and we could set link clicks to be our result, or landing page views. If we want someone to buy a product, we'd set a conversion objective for our campaign, and our result would be the conversion that we wanted. A result isn't just a conversion, but could be any number of things we want accomplished. A link click, a lead, an app install, buying a product, engagement with a post, an impression, or a number of other actions. So what the cost per result looks at is how much we paid for one of these actions to happen. The cost per result formula is simple. Take the total amount you spent on your campaign and divide it by the number of results you achieved. Your goal is to see how cost-effective you can get, which means that you've gotten more results for your budget. For example, if we spent $200 on a reach campaign and had 1,000 impressions as our results, that would be 20 cents an impression. Of course, if we spent $200 and only received 200 impressions, that would be $1 per impression. Similarly, if we spent $500 on a campaign and generated 10 leads as our result, that would be $50 a lead. And if we spent $700 on a campaign and generated 10 app installs as our result, that would be $70 per app install. But what's missing from the previous examples? We don't know whether our cost per result is good or bad. Which is why, as we've discussed before, many of these measurements need to be looked at in context for them to make sense. So let's put the above examples in context. The first example is cost per impression. If we're a new business and want to get our advertising out to as many people as possible, spending $200 and gaining 1,000 impressions in return at 20 cents an impression may be a great use of our budget. Our cost per result was low, which means our results were high, and while we may not yet know how many impressions will convert to sales, our goal at this point may be to just get the word out. But if we were a new business that spent $200 and only received 200 impressions, which means each one cost $1, we may not see that as a good use of our budget and not count that campaign as a success. In our next example, if we spent $500 on a campaign and generated 10 leads from it, we would determine our cost per result as $50 per lead. Is that a good thing? We had used the example of DCB cleaning before and of how the owner James generated leads from his campaigns. Our cost per result is $50, which may sound expensive, but knowing that each lead typically results in a contract for $2,000 per year, $50 a lead sounds relatively cheap. Similarly, if we devoted $700 to a campaign that resulted in 10 app installs, we'd calculate that cost to be $70 per result, which again sounds high. But let's say Kala and Ivy created this app to allow users to manage their flower subscriptions, create their own bouquets, and order for in-store pickup. They know that the average user of the app spends 5 times what a website user does and may create up to $500 a year in sales through the app, which means paying $70 for hundreds of dollars in sales is a good return. But if we paid $70 per app install, yet had no way to monetize our app, and found that only a fraction of app users clicked through to the online store, resulting in an average of only $25 in sales per user, then we would know to either change this campaign or do away with it completely. These examples give us a fuller picture of how cost per result is calculated and how you can use it to make bigger evaluations around your advertising campaigns. Cost per result isn't a static number either and is affected by a number of settings in Ads Manager, like the auction bid, the settings for the audience, the optimization type chosen, where the ads were placed, and whatever schedule was set. Remember that Facebook optimizes to show your ads to users they think are most likely to take the action you want and give you the result you want. But this means that you can compare your cost per result based on your chosen settings to find more ways to improve your market efforts. For example, you may have a lower cost per result with a certain demographic, which means you may want to keep marketing to them. You may see another demographic with a higher cost per result where you'd reconsider your marketing efforts. Or you may see a lower cost per result from certain ad placements over others or on certain schedules. Of course, the more campaigns you run at the same time, the harder it's going to be to get an exact cost per result. Let's return to our example from a previous lesson, where Inu and Neko ran 3 campaigns simultaneously: an awareness campaign, a consideration campaign, and a conversion campaign. The awareness campaign cost $7,000 and generated 1 million impressions for a cost per result of less than a penny. The consideration campaign cost $6,000 and resulted in 8,000 website visits for a cost per result of 75 cents. The conversion campaign cost $6,000 and resulted in 1,000 purchases for a cost per result of $6. If Inu and Neko made 30,000 in sales and the average cost per sale was $30, then they only spent $6 to make $30 for a return of 24, which is pretty good. But while that's the correct metric for cost per result for the conversion campaign, that's not actually the correct number for their return, right? In addition to what Inno and Neko spent on the conversion campaign, they also have to factor in what they spent on the awareness and the consideration campaigns, since the 1,000 people who purchased products came out of the 1,000,000 impressions and the 8,000 website visits. So, Inno and Neko would have to use the entire budget spent, or $19,000, to figure out their cost per sale, which would be 19,000 divided by the 1,000 purchases for a result of $19 spent per sale. With a return now of only $11 per sale, Inno and Neko can decide whether their spending was worth the dollars or not. To evaluate that, they would need to assess return on investment. Remember that ROI takes into account any investment you made, such as the cost of goods sold, and then divide that number by the total amount you spent. After all, you do need to take into account what it cost you to get the product you are selling. ROI does that. Note that this is also an example of customer acquisition cost, in that Inno and Neko spent $19 to acquire a customer. If those customers only make one purchase of $30 and never return, it won't be a good investment. But if they become loyal customers and go on to have lifetime values of a few $1,000s, then spending $19 now is a bargain. The great thing about Ads Manager is that it'll calculate the cost per result for you on your dashboard, so you can see how your campaign is doing and if your cost per result is coming in too high. Ads Manager will also let you set a rule that will flag you if your cost per result is indeed coming in too high, so you can pause your campaign and readjust your settings. So, as you're looking at evaluating how successful or how cost-worthy your campaigns were, don't just use cost per result, but use it alongside the other metrics you've learned here, like ROAS, ROI, customer acquisition cost, and lifetime value. Now we'll look at another measurement that's going to give you some long-term, customer-specific insight. First, remember our video in this lesson on ROAS and the example of Inno and Neko investing in different categories of campaigns to move customers along the funnel to their first purchase. We looked at the ROAS for all these campaigns together. But this is also the period when a company would look at how much it spent to get that customer, another measurement called the customer acquisition cost, or CAC. It is a helpful metric that just looks at the total spent in terms of marketing and sales to get one new customer. But what happens if the customer makes their first purchase? Is that it? Do we no longer track them and start gaining new first-time customers again? A customer making their first purchase is only the beginning. Any business wants a customer to become a repeat customer and then a loyal customer for life. Additionally, existing customers are also cheaper to keep than gaining new customers from scratch, so you want to continue the relationship after that initial purchase. Customer lifetime value, or LTV, is a metric that specifically takes into account what happens after that first purchase. LTV is how much your customer will spend with your business over the span of their relationship with you. For example, you may buy a new iPhone for $700 every 2 years and a new MacBook for $2,000 every 5 or 7 years. You may see that as one-time purchases every few years, but Apple will see those purchases together as a customer lifetime value of $13,000 over a 20-year lifespan, not including accessories and subscriptions you may buy. But LTV puts more than a price tag on your customers. It puts a value on them, as you can track their loyalty to your business. A higher LTV relates to a customer who continues to come back. LTV can also help you see whether you're spending the right amount on acquiring that customer versus how much they'll eventually spend with you. But LTV also holds up a mirror to your operations to show how you're doing with customer retention. Having loyal customers is a result of the business's focus on building good relationships with their customers. In the case of Apple, a 20-year relationship only happens through cultivation. Let's look at how to calculate LTV. It takes a few steps, but I think it helps to see the components you'll need to be aware of, and we'll use an example from Inu and Neko to visualize it. First, we'll find the average purchase value, or the average amount a customer spends per purchase. This is done by taking total revenue and dividing it by total purchases. Let's say that the average Inu and Neko customer spends $20 per purchase. Second, we'll find the average purchase frequency rate, which is how many purchases you would typically get from one customer. This number is found by taking the number of purchases and dividing it by the number of customers. Let's say the average customer makes 2 purchases a month. Next, we'll calculate the average customer's value, which is multiplying our first 2 numbers together. For Inu and Neko, the average customer value for 1 month is $40, or $20 spent times 2 purchases a month. Then we need to figure out the average customer lifespan, or how long a customer relationship typically lasts with your company. You may know this data from experience or by looking at your churn rate, or if you're a younger company, by forecasting. Let's say that the average lifespan of an Inu and Neko customer is 10 years or 120 months. Finally, we can calculate the LTV by multiplying the average customer's value with the average customer lifespan. This will now tell you how much revenue you'll expect to receive from an average customer over their lifespan. For an Inu and Neko customer, we'll multiply $40 a month by 120 months to get us an LTV of $4,800. This is, of course, a much more simplified calculation than you may run into, as businesses may not have flat revenue, and you may want to account for inflation or subtract your customer acquisitions cost to get the number you need. But this calculation gives you a good idea of the components that go into calculating LTV. Now that we know how to calculate LTV, what are some of the things LTV can do to help you with your marketing efforts? We already discussed that it can give you a prediction of how much a customer will be worth to you over the course of their lifetime relationship with your business. LTV is often looked at in comparison to the customer acquisition cost, or CAC. Are you spending a lot to acquire a customer, only to lose them shortly after their first purchase? How quickly is your CAC being recouped? Knowing your LTV can help you work backwards to evaluate your CAC investments. In fact, in some cases, you may find that you can spend more on advertising than you might expect if you only take an initial purchase into account. If you expect the LTV of a customer to be high, it may be okay to lose some money on the first purchase. LTV can also help you identify customer segments and place value on those segments. If one segment has a high LTV and another has a low LTV, investigate the group with lower LTV and compare them to the higher LTV segment. Are those customers abandoning your products? When are they abandoning your products? Now you can look at why. For segments with higher LTV and more loyal customers, use them to create a new lookalike audience, so you can target your advertising to new customers who have the same characteristics as those already giving you the most business. Because you're looking not just at monthly or quarterly sales, but sales that extend years or even decades, LTV forces big picture thinking. Now you're looking at customers not just as a one-off sale, but as a long-term relationship to grow and cultivate. But one of the biggest things looking at LTV can do is to help your business make better decisions in regards to customer relationships. If your LTV is low or you're seeing shorter customer lifespans, then you know you need to invest in retention initiatives and customer support. You could increase your LTV by taking the following actions. First and foremost, make improvements to your customer service. It's not unusual to hear about customers abandoning brands after even one poor interaction. So make sure the service and attitude you're offering your customers is best in class. Also, consider customer service help across multiple channels so customers can find you more easily. Re-evaluate the content you're distributing. Increase its value to your customers so they stay engaged. Offer resources like articles and blog posts and use social media to interact with customers or to distribute useful, informative content. Improve your listening. Follow conversations about your brand and products on social media. Gather feedback from your customers. Build relationships with them and solve pain points. Feeling heard will go a long way towards cultivating and keeping those long-term relationships. In terms of products, you could change your subscription model to a longer-term horizon, like offering annual contracts instead of monthly, to commit your customers longer. Or offer discounts, rewards, or loyalty programs to keep customers engaged and feeling like they're getting value from your business. As you can see, knowing the customer's lifetime value isn't just a number, but a way to gain insights into how you're doing on customer retention and relationship management. In the previous lesson, we covered the main metrics you will encounter as a marketer. Monitoring these numbers will help you evaluate the success of your campaigns. In this lesson, we'll go over ways in which these metrics can be applied, and we will give you examples of how these metrics can come in handy when you're evaluating your marketing. In this first video, we'll take another look at an example of calculating return on ad spend and return on investment. It's spring, and people are thinking about flowers. Calla and Ivy usually get a bump at this time of year from customers interested in seasonal flowers for their home, but also interested in gardening advice, as well as planning ahead for upcoming holidays like Mother's Day. This year, in order to capitalize on that interest, Imra's putting together a spring subscription package for her customers. For $500, customers can get one bouquet a week, one special gift bouquet a month, and 4 classes on bouquet design. The package runs April through June, and anyone who signs up gets a discount on future purchases and subscriptions. Imra's goal is to sell as many as she can, certainly, but she hopes to hit her target of 20 packages purchased. She'll be running her advertising campaign in March only and hasn't done a big ticket package sale like this before. But based on what she knows about her audience, she thinks she'll be able to achieve her goal, and she'll be targeting her loyal customers. And she plans to create lookalike audiences to find new people who might be interested. Imra sets up her advertising for the package sale. She has an objective of conversions and optimizes for purchases. She sets up her ad sets on a lifetime budget of $1,500 for the month of March. After the campaign runs, Imra finds that she hasn't hit her target, but she got close. 18 sign-ups for a total of $9,000 in revenue on the packages. What would the return on ad spend be for this campaign? remembering that the formula is revenue over the amount spent on advertising. Imra's ROAS would be the $9,000 she made in revenue divided by the $1,500 spent on advertising, for a ROAS of 6. She made 6 times what she spent on her advertising. Is this a good number? Considering that the past few campaigns have resulted in an average ROAS of around 4, having a ROAS of 6 means that this campaign did better than the others. But what if Imra wanted to look at the return on investment on this campaign? It wouldn't be the same, as ROI takes into consideration the investments made that contributed to the sale. Not only spending on advertising, but the cost of goods sold, or how much it cost Kala and Ivy for the flowers and supplies, as well as staff time and overhead for the classes. In reality, the $500 that Kala and Ivy makes from a spring subscription package isn't truly $500. It's more like $400, with $100 deducted out in costs per subscription. Now, if Imra were to measure the return on investment on the subscription package, it would be the revenue minus the investments divided by the investments, not just revenue divided by ad spend. So it would be $9,000 minus investments of $3,300, which includes $1,800 in costs plus $1,500 investment in advertising, divided by the total investments, or $3,300, for an ROI of 1.73. Now, Imra knows that for every dollar she spends, she gets $1.73 in return. Next, we'll take another look at calculating cost per result. Unbeknownst to one another, Imra at Kala and Ivy and James at DCB Cleaning are setting up similar advertising campaigns for their business. They've both created new initiatives for their businesses: the spring subscription for Kala and Ivy and the snack wall at DCB Cleaning. They've each set up a new page on their website that gives information on each initiative, and each business is setting up advertising to drive visitors to those pages. Imra sets up a consideration campaign for the page, with an objective of traffic to get those visitors to the site. Under budget and schedule, she sets up optimization for ad delivery for link clicks and sets a lifetime budget of $850. James also sets up a consideration campaign for his page with a traffic objective in Ads Manager. He sets up optimization for ad delivery for link clicks and sets a lifetime budget of $850 as well. At the end of the campaign, Kala and Ivy received 7,000 results or link clicks from the campaign. In order to calculate the cost per result, Imra would take the amount spent on the ad campaign, or $850, and divide it by the number of results, 7,000, for a cost per result of 12 cents per link click. They can also find the cost per result number on the Ads Manager dashboard. DCB Cleaning received 1,000 results or link clicks from the campaign. DCB's cost per result would be $850 divided by 1,000, or 85 cents per link click. They can also find the cost per result number on the Ads Manager dashboard. In the end, Kala and Ivy ended up paying much less per result than DCB Cleaning did. If they set up the same campaign objectives with the same optimization and the same budget, why did they get such different numbers for the cost per result? There could be several reasons that have to do with how campaigns are set up in Ads Manager. Let's go over a few of them. Imra could have set up a more targeted audience than James, which got more results or link clicks. James could have narrowed his ad placements too much for them to be useful, thus missing out on wider audiences. James might also have narrowed his scheduling too much to have it to be useful too. Imra might have just had a better strategy when it came to setting up ads, more targeted audience, broader reach through placements, and better scheduling. And of course, the actual ads used will also have a big effect on the results. It's possible that Imra's ad was a lot more appealing to her target audience than the ad James used for his target. As you can see, there could be many different reasons why cost per result differs from campaign to campaign. So, is this the same as the customer acquisition cost? In other words, did Kalle and Ivy acquire a customer for just 12 cents? Possibly, if someone had never seen an ad before, responded to this one and made a purchase. More likely, this campaign would be one of many campaigns that contribute to the process of gaining a customer. The customer acquisition cost would consider all the spending on one individual. Now we'll take another look at an example of calculating the customer lifetime value, sometimes also referred to as LTV. Now that the snack wall has been up and running for a year, James at DCB Cleaning has been revisiting its pricing and looking at customer acquisition costs versus long-term revenue derived from snack wall subscriptions. James also wants to see if he's focusing on the right customers for long-term growth, so he wants to calculate the lifetime value of his customers. Since the snack wall has different options and pricing structures for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and large corporate companies, James wants to look at the LTV for the different segments. First, James will find the average purchase value for the snack wall. Since Snackwall works on a subscription model, he wouldn't have an average purchase price for each customer like a retail store would. Instead, James would take the amount of a subscription per year, which works out to be the average, $2,000 for a small business, $4,000 for a medium business, and $6,000 for a large business. Second, James would find the average purchase frequency rate, which is the number of purchases divided by the number of customers. Since Snackwall works on a subscription model and since contracts usually run on a yearly basis, the average purchase frequency would be 1 purchase a year per customer. Next, James calculates the average customer's value, which is multiplying the first two numbers together. Since James is using a 1-year horizon as the baseline, the average customer value would be $2,000 for a small business, $4,000 for a medium business, and $6,000 for a large business. Then, James needs to figure out the average customer lifespan. Since Snackwall is only a year old, and since it's a different kind of product than the cleaning subscriptions DCB already offers, he doesn't have any long-term data to tell him the typical customer lifespan. He could do some research on comparable businesses and their customer lifespan, but given that the Snackwall is a contract service priced by the size of the company and also sensitive to budget evaluations, James thinks he can use the lifespan of his cleaning customers to forecast the lifespan of the Snackwall customers. Typically, small businesses have a long lifespan of 10 years because they like doing business with the same people. Medium businesses, 7 years. With corporations, a lifespan of 5 years, usually due to wanting to seek out more cost-effective vendors. Finally, James can calculate the LTVs for his different customer segments by multiplying the average customer value by the average customer lifespan. For small businesses, this would be $2,000 times 10 years for an LTV of $20,000. For medium businesses, this would be $4,000 times 7 years for an LTV of $28,000. For large companies, this would be $6,000 times 5 years for an LTV of $30,000. Now James can make some decisions about his future marketing efforts. It was obvious to him earlier that his corporate customers would probably have a higher return, but now he can see that marketing to bigger companies is the way to go. Even with half the time horizon of small businesses, he's making more. Of course, this assumes that there is no difference in cost to acquire a large business customer versus a small business customer. Fantastic! You completed your first week in the Measure and Optimize Social Media Marketing course. Yes, I know we threw quite a few metrics and terms at you, but these will help you evaluate the success of your marketing campaigns. You now know how to hone in on the metrics that matter most for your marketing goals. You know how to evaluate results of your campaign and how to balance results versus costs with metrics like ROAS and ROI. You know how to evaluate cost per result for your advertising. You learned about customer acquisition costs, or CAC, but you also know to take into account customer lifetime value, or LTV, when assessing whether your money was well spent. All these metrics can help you assess the success of your campaign, and they can also point you to optimization opportunities. Next, we'll go one layer deeper into advertising effectiveness measurement, and we'll look at how you can prove that your advertising led to the results you're seeing. I will see you there. If you're planning on a career in advertising, or you already work in marketing, you may have come across this famous quote: "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half." It's from John Wanamaker, a department store merchant and advertising pioneer, and he said this in the 1800s. But he also described two advertising challenges that still persist today. It's hard to know whether you've spent your money well and whether your ads have worked. So, how do you find out? So far, we've evaluated whether we spent our money well by comparing campaign results and costs. This helps us figure out whether our campaign was a good investment and whether we got more out of it than we put in. But there's still one important question that our campaign results can't answer. What would have happened if we hadn't run the campaign at all? Would we have sold the same number of goods? Did we need to spend the advertising money that we did? These questions get at the heart of advertising effectiveness measurement, or measuring how well a company's advertising accomplishes the intended goal, and that is what we will look at in this lesson. By the end of this lesson, you'll know how to answer this question and how to help people like John Wanamaker or anyone you're advertising for feel like their money was well spent. It's important for marketers to understand their work's effects. Employers and clients will often ask you to justify their marketing investments and to prove that your advertising campaign delivered results. While social media advertising platforms usually give you a great breakdown of your campaign's individual results, you'll have to go one step further to prove your entire advertising investment was money well spent. In this video, I'll walk you through the basics of how to go about that by using experiments. Experiments have been around for a long time, and they're used in many different fields. The roots of experiments stem from agriculture. Over centuries, farmers learned what makes their crops grow through the use of countless experiments. By keeping almost all things the same, changing just one thing at a time, called a variable, the farmers were able to pinpoint which factor yielded the largest benefit. Imagine you have 2 plants and your goal is to increase plant growth. You want to test the hypothesis that giving plants fertilizer increases growth, so you give fertilizer to plant B. A few weeks later, you measure your plants and you see that plant B grew more than plant A, which didn't get any fertilizer. Since the conditions your plants grew in were otherwise exactly the same, you know that the fertilizer must have caused Plan B's growth. This is the foundation of experimental design methodology. You treat one group of subjects and you don't treat the other group. You measure the differences in results between both groups after treatment and learn about the effect of your treatment. If you keep the conditions for both groups exactly the same and only vary one factor or variable, like the fertilizer in our example, you can assign the results you're seeing to that one variable. We call the group that received the treatment group, and the group that you didn't treat the control group. The one variable that differs between the groups is often referred to as the treatment or the treatment variable. So, how do experimental design principles apply to measuring advertising effectiveness? In advertising, your treatment could be exposing someone to a particular ad. So, you can use experiments to measure the effects of your ads on the results you're hoping to achieve. For example, if one group sees your ads and another group doesn't see your ads, you can measure how many results or sales you achieve from the group that saw your ads and compare that to the number of results of sales you see from the group that didn't see your ads. The difference in results or sales can then be considered the result of your advertising. But, as I'm sure you can imagine, creating a controlled experiment to measure your advertising effects is a bit more complex than comparing what happens to two identical plants when you give one of them fertilizer. In the next video, we'll go through exactly how these experiments are set up. But before we do that, there's one really important thing you should remember about experiments. Experiments are carefully planned ahead of time. That's because they involve creating groups of subjects that receive different treatments. So if you want to run an experiment to test your advertising effectiveness, you have to plan it before you create and run your advertising campaign. While there are different ways to evaluate your advertising effectiveness, experiments are the best way to answer the most important question you'll get as a marketer. Was your advertising worth the money? Did it generate results you wanted, like sales, traffic, leads, and other types? So, let's study in more detail how you can conduct experiments to measure the effect of advertising in our next video. Now that we know that experiments are the best way to evaluate the effectiveness of your advertising, let's talk about how they work. In the previous video, we learned how experiments are set up. Experiments are a comparison between two groups: a control group that didn't receive a treatment and a treatment group that did. The treatment involves one variable that you change while otherwise keeping everything in the two groups the same. We used the example of two plants that were treated exactly the same except for one variable. One got fertilizer and the other one didn't. When we test the effect of advertising, being exposed to an ad becomes the treatment. One group of people is exposed to ads and the other group isn't. But people aren't plants. You can't neatly control them and make sure nothing in their experience is different besides the ad exposure. So that makes setting up an experiment a bit more complex. How do we deal with human variation and still set up experiments that work? That is where randomization comes in. In order to compare the effect of changing one variable between two groups of people, it's important that the two groups of people be as similar as possible. In order to create two similar groups, you can use randomization. Randomization is the process of assigning people to the different groups by chance or randomly. By doing that, you distribute people with certain characteristics equally over the groups. And that way, you create groups that are as similar as possible. Experiments in advertising use randomization to assign people to a control group or a treatment or test group. Studies that use this type of experiment are referred to as randomized controlled trials, or RCTs. Let's take a closer look at what it takes to design a good, random, controlled trial to assess the effect of advertising. Let's go back to Calla and Ivy, a flower business in Amsterdam. Imra, the owner, plans a campaign to drive online sales of the new fall bouquets she's created. She's interested in knowing whether it's really worth it to spend money on advertising, so she plans to run an experiment. Here's what would need to happen in order for the experiment to really prove to her what the effect of the campaign was. First, you'd identify a group of people you'd like to show the campaign to. In other words, the target audience. Out of this target audience, people will be randomly assigned to either the test group or the control group. People who are assigned to the test group may be exposed to a treatment. In other words, they may see Imra's ad. People in the control group don't receive that treatment. They won't see the ad. After the campaign runs, Imra can compare the results between the control and the test group. In this case, she'll look at the difference in conversions or sales of the fall bouquets in the test group, the group that saw the ads, compared to the control group, the group that didn't see the ad. If there are significantly more conversions or sales from the test group than the control group, we can confidently say that the advertising campaign worked and had a real impact. Well-designed RCTs can show an ad campaign's true impact. Any difference between the groups is likely to have been caused by the ad or campaign. This is also referred to as the campaign's incremental impact. There's one more thing to consider when thinking about randomized controlled trials in advertising. An RCT is set up so people will have the experience intended for whichever group they were randomly assigned to. They see the ad in the test group or they don't see the ad in the control group. However, it's not that easy to achieve this in advertising. This is because it's not always possible for the researcher to make sure that everyone in that test group receives the treatment. I may intend to show you an ad on Facebook, but what if you don't use Facebook while my test is running? This could mean that you're not getting the treatment that I intended for you. Should you then move over to the control group? Well, actually no, that's not a great idea, because then my groups would no longer be random. If I send over all the people that weren't using Facebook while my ad was running, my control group wouldn't be as similar as possible to my test group any longer. That's why well-designed tests use intention to treat, or ITT. ITT keeps all experiment participants in the group they were originally assigned to, regardless of what they see or do. This minimizes the effect of potential bias. Let's talk about ITT with an example. Imagine the medical community is testing a new drug and you're placed in the test group. You're given the drug to take, but the people conducting the experiment can't always control whether you actually take it. You may forget, or you may decide that you don't want to take it. In an ITT setting, however, your outcome will be measured as part of the test group, regardless of whether you actually took the medicine or not. It's the same with advertising. Whether or not you actually receive the treatment, you will remain in the test group, and your result will be part of the test group. When you use intention to treat, it reduces the effect of the treatment, which makes it a bit harder to achieve significant results, but it keeps bias out. So, experiments are a powerful way to measure the effect of a campaign. But if you plan to use experiments in your role as an advertiser, make sure that these two conditions are met. The experiment should use a randomized controlled trial design and adhere to ITT, or intention to treat, for the test group. This way, you can be reassured that your test is not biased and that you can be confident in your results. In the previous lesson, we learned that experiments let us prove a causal relationship between an ad or campaign and an increase in results. In this lesson, we'll look at how you can set up those experiments and how you should evaluate their results. To do this, we're going to focus on the measurement solutions Facebook provides. You can also set up experiments in other social media marketing platforms or use third-party measurement tools too. Facebook offers two different randomized controlled trial tools, holdout tests and brand survey tests. Both of these are tests that use experimental designs, but they differ in the outcomes they measure. Holdout tests measure the effect of ads on conversions, which could be sales, add to cart, leads, and so on. These tests are sometimes also referred to as conversion lift tests. Brand survey tests measure the effect of ads on changes in brand recall and other brand-related measures. You'll also hear people call these tests brand lift tests. So in other words, holdout tests are all about actions. Did people buy? Whereas the brand survey test is all about attitudes. Did people's attitude towards a brand change? And do they remember the brand after seeing the ad? A Facebook holdout test is used to measure conversion lift, which means that they measure whether your campaign caused an increase in conversions. A holdout test begins by randomly assigning people from a campaign's target audience to either a test or control group. The test is referred to as a holdout test, since the control group is basically held out from being exposed to your ad. People in the test group of a holdout test can be exposed to an ad, whereas people in the control group won't be exposed to the ad. After that, we want to measure the influence of the ad on conversions. In other words, we'd now like to see whether the group that did see the ad took more actions or converted more than the group that didn't see the ad. To do that, we need to have a way to see whether conversions actually happened. These conversions could be sales or other events like adding a product to a cart, downloading an app, or more. For Facebook to detect whether the people tested took any of these actions, the advertiser needs to pass some data back to Facebook. There are three major ways to do that. If the action is expected to take place on the advertiser's website, advertisers can pass data through the Facebook pixel. If the action monitored is app-related, the data needs to be passed back to Facebook via the Facebook SDK. The Facebook SDK is a special software developer kit Facebook provides to mobile developers for exactly this purpose. If the action happens offline, like a sale in a store for instance, data needs to be provided through a Conversions API. A Conversions API involves connecting data from a system that monitors offline sales to Facebook's system. We'll provide more detail on how data can be recorded later in this lesson, but for now, it's good to keep in mind that if you want to measure the effect advertising has on certain actions, you need to be able to monitor whether these actions happened or not. These three systems allow you to do that monitoring and pass the information back to Facebook. The final step in your holdout test is measuring the results and comparing the difference between the groups. This means you're comparing the actions you see in the control group versus the test group. The lift in conversions you see between the test and control group can be attributed to the ads. That lift is the effect of your advertising. Holdout tests are one of two different RCT methods Facebook offers. The second experiment is referred to as a brand survey test. And as the name suggests, this one focuses on evaluating brand lift rather than conversion lift. Brand lift refers to an increase in the awareness for a brand. A brand survey test works in exactly the same way a holdout test works. But a brand survey test is used for campaigns that have a goal related to a brand outcome. For instance, increasing brand awareness. So Just as in a holdout test, you start by randomly assigning people from the target audience of a campaign to either a test or control group. People in the test group can be exposed to an ad versus people in the control group don't see the ad. Since you're measuring the effect of ads on brand perceptions in a brand survey test, you'll measure your results a little differently than you would for a holdout test. For instance, you'll want to check your ads' effect on brand awareness as opposed to conversions. We measure that using a survey. All the people that were part of your test group and the people in your control group will be served one or a few polling questions. The main question people will be asked is, do you recall seeing an ad for this brand online or on a mobile device in the last 2 days? This is how you measure ad recall lift, which is an important metric in evaluating a brand survey test. But your specific ad recall lift question will, of course, refer to the specific brand you're testing for. Next, you'll measure the difference between the ad recall in the test group versus the control group. The effect you're seeing on brand recall is caused by the ad. Your campaign goals will determine whether you should perform a holdout test or a brand survey test. What are you trying to achieve with your campaign? If you're focused on increasing brand awareness, you'll opt for a brand survey test. If you're focused on sales or other conversions, a holdout test would be the right test for you. You may remember how in the first course of this program we talked about the purchase funnel. These two tests differ in where they fit in the purchase funnel. You'd use the brand survey test for campaigns earlier in the funnel to generate awareness, and you'd use the holdout test for campaigns at a later stage of the funnel, driving people to conversion. Let's look at an example of how these tests can help you. Let's go back to Calla and Ivy, the flower business in Amsterdam. Imra would like to sell more of her fall bouquets online, but she also realizes that not too many people know about the option to order flowers through her website, so she decides to run a campaign to generate more awareness of her brand and the fact that you can order online from her website. She uses ads with beautiful images of the bouquets and a headline that reads, "Treat yourself, order our bouquets online." And she adds a Learn More call to action button. This campaign aligns with the top part of the purchase funnel, at the awareness stage. Imra wants people to learn about the brand and the online sales options. Imra wants to understand what the effect is of this campaign, so before running the campaign, she decides that she'll conduct a brand survey test to evaluate the effect. Out of Imra's target audience, a group of people is randomly assigned to a control group. This group won't see Imra's ad. After the campaign runs for about a month, a survey is shown to people in Imra's test group, who did have an opportunity to see the ad, and her control group, people who didn't. Imra chooses to ask the following two questions. Do you recall seeing an ad for Calla and Ivy online or on a mobile device in the last 2 days? And how familiar are you with Calla and Ivy? After the test is complete, Imra learns that her campaign was responsible for a 12-point lift in ad recall and a 7-point lift in familiarity. Imra's excited about those results. Next, Imra plans to run a campaign with the goal to generate sales during the fall. She specifically wants to sell the fall bouquets that are very popular in her physical store in Amsterdam. For this campaign, Imra creates carousel ads with images of the different bouquets, and she adds a call to action button that says Shop Now. This campaign is focused on conversions and thus fits in the lower part of the conversion funnel. On the Calla and Ivy website, Imra's implemented the Facebook Pixel. Because there's a Pixel event associated with the checkout, when people buy something on her website, data gets sent back to Facebook to signal a conversion. Imra wants to keep testing the impact of her campaigns. So before starting the campaign, she decides to do a holdout test. Imra targets her campaign to people that have visited her website in the past. Of this target audience, a group of people will randomly be assigned to a holdout or control group. Another group is assigned to the test group. The control group doesn't see Imra's ads, whereas the test group has an opportunity to see the ad. After the campaign stops running, Imra gets the results. There's a 13 percentage point lift in conversions for people who have seen the ad, and Imra decides that's a good result. Later in this lesson, we'll take a closer look at these results and look at how to best interpret them. But for now, let's agree with Imra that both her campaigns proved to be effective. This brings us to our last question for this video. Once the results of your experiments are in, whether it's the results of your holdout test or brand survey, how should you use that data? There are two main reasons why you should conduct these types of tests. First, you can use them to prove your advertising dollars were well spent. As we talked about in the previous lesson, as a marketer, you'll often be asked to prove that your ads had an effect, so you can use these tests to answer that question. The second reason to use these tests is to further optimize your advertising spending. Once you know what the effect is of your ad campaign, you will have more information to make future spend decisions. You can, for instance, decide to shift more of the budget to the campaigns that prove effective, or you can create similar campaigns in the future. In this video, we covered the two different randomized controlled trial tests Facebook offers: holdout tests, focused on measuring conversion lift, and brand surveys, focused on measuring brand lift. In our next video, we'll look at how you can approach the practical setup of each of these tests. So far, we've seen how experiments can help to evaluate the effectiveness of an advertising campaign. In this video, we'll look at how you can execute these experiments in practice. More specifically, we'll focus on how to conduct holdout tests and brand surveys on the Facebook platform. Let's go back to the example we talked about in the previous video. Imra, at Calla and Ivy, ran two different campaigns for which she conducted two different experiments. First, she ran a campaign focused on generating awareness for the purchase options she offers on her website. Second, she ran a campaign focused on increasing sales for the fall bouquets. For her first campaign, Imra planned a brand survey study, and for her second campaign, she used a holdout study. Both of these studies can be executed using Facebook experiments. When Imra decided to run her awareness-focused campaign, she had a certain goal in mind. You may remember how in the first course of this program, we discussed how formulating SMART goals can help your marketing efforts. Having such a goal will help you hone in on what you want to achieve and how you're going to measure whether you achieved it. So in Imra's case, she may have formulated a SMART goal that looked like this: increase awareness of the Calla and Ivy online purchase option with 10 percentage points among the target audience by November. This goal helped Imra create her campaign, and it will now help her to evaluate whether her campaign was successful. The brand survey test specifically will help her measure this. After Imra creates her campaign, she can set up the brand survey using the Facebook experiment tool. This is part of the business tools in Facebook, which you can find by navigating from your Ads Manager here. It's important to remember you have to run an experiment after you create a campaign, but before you start to run the campaign. Otherwise, you can't create a proper control group. After you click Tests, you'll land on the Facebook Experiments page, where you'll find the Brand Survey Test option. Click that option, and then you're ready to start testing. Let me walk you through the steps at a high level, as it will help you understand how the tests run in practice. You might be surprised at how easy they are to run. Note that not all Ads Manager accounts are eligible to use this test platform. You have to have a certain level of money spent in your account. Facebook also suggests that in order to run a successful test, you should at least spend about $30,000 on advertising in the campaigns you're testing. When you think about how these tests are conducted, that makes sense. After all, as we learned, you're going to compare the difference between ad awareness for people who did and those who didn't see your ad. In order to see a difference, you need to poll a large enough audience about whether or not they saw your ad. So that means you have to have a certain budget to make this test work. The first section of the brand survey test focuses on the test details. You start by specifying what you're testing. You can test the effect of all the campaigns that are running in your account together. You can also test the effect of a group of campaigns, or you can test a specific campaign. In Imra's case, a specific campaign would be the right choice. She'll specifically choose the awareness campaign she created. As part of the test details, you also specify the name of your Facebook page. This will later be used to identify your brand in the poll questions, so users know who these questions are coming from. You'll also specify the region where your target audience lives and the vertical your brand belongs to. Then you select a data range for your test and you name your experiment. Then you get to the core of the test setup, creating your poll questions. The first question is the standard ad recall poll. That one is always included in your test. This question basically asks respondents whether they recall seeing your ad. You can customize the question here to make sure it best reflects the type of ad that you created and your brand. For Imra's ad, this question looks like this. Then you can add up to 2 more questions. Imra decided to add 1 more question to evaluate how familiar people are with Kala and Ivy. When you've added your questions, your test is basically ready to run. You can add a conversion event if you'd like, which would let you measure whether your ads also impacted conversions, but you don't have to do that. You also get an estimate of the power of the test that you've created. This tells you whether your test is likely to be successful or have enough power to give you significant results. The power of a test depends on the questions you use and the time frame in which your test runs. If your test runs for a long time, you'll get more responses, and your results will thus be more reliable. We'll talk about this more in our next video. This covered the process for setting up a brand survey test. The process for setting up a holdout test, the other random controlled experiment option in Facebook, is very similar. Remember how we discussed that after Imra ran a successful brand awareness campaign, she also ran a campaign focused on driving sales of the autumn bouquets. This campaign aligned with her SMART goal of increasing the online sales of flower bouquets during the month of November with 15 percentage points compared to September sales. To be able to evaluate whether her campaign helped her achieve this goal, Imra set up a holdout test. You can find this test among Facebook experiments. Remember that this test specifically measures the effect of your advertising on conversions, which in this case is the number of sales. You'll see that the setup for this test is very similar to the brand survey test. Just as in the brand survey test, you'll first add your test details. You select whether you want to look at the effect of all your campaigns in your account, a group of campaigns, or just one specific campaign. You'll decide on the date range for when you want the test to run, and you name your test. In the holdout test, we won't need to use a poll or a survey to ask people about their recall or purchases. Rather, we'll rely on actual behavioral information that gets provided to the Facebook system through the Facebook Pixel, if we're looking at actions that happened on a website. We can also use data from the Facebook SDK if we're evaluating app-related actions, or we can use offline conversion data if the conversions we're measuring take place offline. Note that you can specify more than one event. Say, for instance, in Kala and Ivy's case, an event could be a checkout on the website. This could indicate a purchase. However, I could also measure the impact on events that happen a bit higher in the funnel, like adding a bouquet to a shopping cart. These different events can all be tracked with the Facebook Pixel. We'll have more detail on how that works later in this module. Once you identify the event you want to use to evaluate your results, your test is set up. Now you get an estimate of the power of your test, or how likely you are to detect a conversion lift with this test setup. You can increase the power of the test by increasing the time period you run the test for, or by adding more events to track. Once your tests are set up, you just have to wait for the results to come in. Let's see what results look like in our next video. You can use randomized controlled experiments to evaluate the effectiveness of your advertising and to help you decide your future advertising strategy. Of course, to do that well, you'll have to draw the right conclusions from your study. We'll talk about how to do that in this video. 48 hours after the test stopped running, the results become available. Here is what results for our brand survey test look like. The results summary show you the increase in percentage of people who recalled your ad. In this case, there's a 13.9 point increase in brand lift. In other words, the percentage of people in the test group who recalled your ad was 13.9 points higher than the percentage of people that recalled the ad in the control group. This number is calculated by subtracting the percentage of desired responses observed between the test group and the control group. In this case, that's 28.8 minus 7.9%. You may have expected the number of people in the control group who say they saw your ad to be 0. After all, the control group is the group you did not serve your ads to. This usually isn't the case though. In surveys like this, where you ask people whether they recall seeing an ad, some people will say yes, even if they didn't. This could be because they remember your brand from other exposure, or they just think they saw it, but in reality they didn't. You'll also get a cost per brand lift, which reflects how much it costs you in advertising spend for each additional person who gives a desired response. You also see the total brand lift, or the estimated number of people that are likely to respond favorably to your brand as a result of your advertising. Facebook lets you compare the results of your brand survey test to other tests in your region, for instance, other tests conducted in North America. This helps you evaluate how strong your results are as compared to average results seen in other tests. Note that in this case, we also get results for 2 other polling questions, a brand awareness question and an intent question. The test results also tell you what the confidence level is for your results. In this case, the confidence level is 99.9%. This means that if you were to run this test again, there's a 99.9% chance that your results will be the same. A confidence level of 90% or higher is good. Ideally, you shouldn't go below that. That means your test isn't as strong as it could be. If the confidence level for your test isn't very high, you might want to try to run your test for a bit longer. You may also need to increase your advertising budget to see a bigger effect. It's also worth noting that if your desired action happens lower in the funnel, for instance, if you want to influence people's intent to purchase, it can be hard to affect lift. Now, let's look at results for a holdout test focused on conversion lift. Remember that just like brand surveys, this is a randomized controlled trial test you can run for your Facebook campaigns. Here is what the results will look like on Facebook. First, you get an overview of the results of your test. The conversion lift percentage gives you the difference in conversions between the people who did and did not have the opportunity to see your ad during this test. The conversion lift tells you how many additional conversions happened as a result of your ads. And the sales lift tells you how much value was generated from those additional conversions. Then you also get an evaluation of the results compared to the costs. First, you see the cost of each additional conversion caused by your ads. And next to it, you get an evaluation of your return on ad spend, or ROAS. In this case, you achieved a ROAS of 10.7, which means that for each dollar you spend, you'll generate $10.7 in revenue. And as you can tell from looking at these reports, the result of these experiments gives you all the information you need to answer the questions: what was the effect of my advertising? And were my ads worth the money I spent on them? Experiments, when they're designed well, make it easier to answer these questions. Remember, a well-designed experiment requires that people in the test are randomly assigned to the test or the control group. It also requires that you keep people in the group they were assigned to, even if people in the test group ended up not seeing your ad. Since you had the intention of showing them the ad, they should remain in your test group. We refer to that as the intention to treat. The tests you find in Facebook's experiments comply with these requirements, so you can confidently use them to evaluate the effectiveness of your ads. Congratulations! You've completed another week in this course on measurement and optimization. In the first lesson, you learned how experiments can help you evaluate the effectiveness of your ads. You also learned which different types of experiments are used to measure advertising outcomes. Then, in our second lesson, you learned how to run experiments on the Facebook platform. More specifically, you learned how to create a brand survey and a holdout test to evaluate brand and conversion lift respectively. You also learned how to interpret the results of these tests. I know this was a lot, but here's my advice to you. If you get a chance to use these tests, do it. Ads Manager usually requires a certain level of advertising spend before you can run these tests, but you really have nothing to lose. You'll learn a lot from running these tests, and they'll help you to optimize your campaigns and spend your money more efficiently. So far, we've taken a close look at how you can measure the outcome of your marketing, specifically your advertising campaigns. We've looked at the metrics you can use to evaluate the success of your campaign from a cost versus return point of view. We also looked at how you can use experiments to prove that your campaigns were responsible for the results you're seeing. In this module, we're going to ask ourselves, how can I make my campaigns better? Is there something the data can tell me that can help me optimize my campaigns? Can I better spend my budget now and in the future? One way you can optimize your campaigns is through the use of A/B testing. A/B testing is the process of comparing two variants of an ad against each other to evaluate which one performs best. A/B testing can help reveal ways you can make your campaign better while it is still running. A/B testing is quite simple. Here's how it works. You create two different versions of an ad, version A and version B. Every time there's an opportunity to show your ad, the advertising platform will randomly choose whether it shows version A or version B. The results of your ads are measured against your goal, and the ad that's the best at achieving your goal will be declared the winner of your test. A/B testing is used extensively in online advertising. It's an easy way to quickly learn what works best and optimize your campaigns based on these insights. But A/B testing is also used in other disciplines. For instance, website or app designers will often use it to understand which website or app layout works best. To do that, they'll serve version A of a website or app to some people and version B to the other people. And then they assess which website or app drives better results, like checkouts, for instance. It may seem that varying just one variable and testing it is not such a big deal, but insights derived from A/B tests can have a really big impact. Let me tell you about an example of A/B tests conducted by Microsoft's Bing, as it was written up in Harvard Business Review. Bing ran a few A/B tests testing very slight variations in colors used on the Bing search engine results pages. They used slightly darker blues and greens in titles and slightly lighter black in captions on those pages. The tests showed that these color changes improved the user's experience a lot. In fact, when they rolled out these new colors to all users, it increased the annual revenue from these search results pages by more than $10 million. Actually, when I worked in Yahoo's search research team, we used A/B testing very rigorously, and we always found small changes to the user experience could have a very big impact on the revenue generated from search ads on those search results pages. There is one very important best practice you should keep in mind when conducting A/B tests. When you create your A and B version of what you're about to test, vary only one variable. What do I mean by that? Let me walk you through an example. Imagine I'm running a campaign to sell jewelry. I have this ad with an image of a ring with a blue stone, and a copy of my ad says, "Celebrate memorable moments with a special ring. Check out our new spring collection." And I have a call to action button that says, "Learn more." I can run an A/B test by considering this ad to be my A version and creating a new ad that will be my B version. The best practice in A/B testing is to make the B version differ in only one variable from the A version. In this case, I'm going to vary only the image. Instead of a blue stone ring, I'm going to show a ring with 3 red stones. I will keep the ad copy the same, and I will also keep the call to action button to say "Learn more." Why does this matter? Well, now when I get my results back and I see that ad B won, I'll learn something from my experiment. I'll know that B won because the image was better at helping me achieve my results. Since everything else in the ad was the same, I know the image was the reason my results were better. Now I know that, under these circumstances, this image is best. So I can keep this as my optimal image. I may decide that I want to test some more. In fact, maybe I could improve the copy. So I can conduct another A/B test. My A version ad has the image of the ring with the 3 red stones, and I know this is the best image. And the copy reads, "Celebrate memorable moments with a special ring. Check out our new spring collection." Just like before. The call to action button is "Learn more." For my B version, I keep the image constant, but now my copy reads, "Celebrate memorable moments with a special ring. Receive 10% off this week." And the call to action is "Learn more." My test runs and I learn that the B version wins again. So the ideal copy is, "Celebrate memorable moments with a special ring. Receive 10% off this week." I know that because that was the only thing that was different between the 2 ads, so the better results must be because of the copy. Finally, I can test the call to action button. I start with the image and the copy that I know is optimal, and I keep "Learn more" as the call to action in my A version of the ad. For my B version, I keep everything constant, but I change the call to action button to "Shop now." Now, version A wins. Turns out that the "Learn more" button works better for this ad than the "Shop now" button. So, I know to keep running my campaign with the optimized ad. You may wonder, couldn't I just test the ads that I think will be the best ones and pick the winner without going through the step-by-step testing I just explained? You can, but you'll most likely not end up with the most optimal version of your ad. And you won't know which part of your ad contributed to the improved results. Imagine if you had tested the first ad we started with, the one with the blue stone ring, against the final ad we put in our last test with a different image, different copy, and a different call to action button. And say, in this case, ad B won. We wouldn't know why ad B won. Was it because the image was different, the copy was different, or the call to action? We would also not have ended up with the most optimal version of the ad, which we learned was this one with a different call to action button. So, in order to get the most out of your A/B tests, test only one variable at a time. Conducting A/B tests on a regular basis as part of your online advertising strategy is a really good practice. And you'll find that most online advertising platforms have the option to run these tests built in, so it's usually quite easy to make them a regular part of your campaigns. In our next video, we'll look at how this works on the Facebook platform. We've learned what A/B tests are and when you can use them. As is the case for many online advertising platforms, Facebook lets you execute A/B tests as part of the campaigns you run on its platform. In this video, we'll take a look at how that works. Let's go back to Calla and Ivy, the flower business in Amsterdam. Imra is planning a campaign on Facebook to increase traffic to her website, so people can become familiar with her online purchase options. She had a planning meeting with her team, and her designer showed her the images from her last in-shop photo shoot. There were lots of good pictures, and the team had a lively discussion about which images to use for the ads. The photographer really liked a close-up of a few flowers in a bouquet. But some other people on the team thought that a full bouquet would be more representative of what Calla and Ivy actually sells. Imra told her team that rather than guessing at what would work best, they should probably test it. This is exactly the type of question you can answer with an A/B test. If Imra creates an A and a B version of the ad, with the image being the only difference between the ads, she can get an objective answer to the question of which image is better in this ad. Here's how you can set up an A/B test on Facebook. After Imra's set up her campaign, she can indicate that she'd like to run an A/B test by selecting the campaign in her Ads Manager dashboard and clicking A/B testing. This will make the selected campaign the A version in the test. It'll then prompt you to change one variable in your campaign to create the B version. Facebook will automatically show the variables you can change based on the specifics of your campaign. So, in our example, Imra would choose to change the image. All the other aspects of her campaign will remain the same. Facebook then creates a new ad set. Imra's then prompted to upload the new image for version B. In this case, that's the close-up flower picture. You then have to give your test a name and you can adjust the budget. Note that the budget will be split 50-50 over the two ad sets. You should make sure that the budget is big enough to see meaningful results. You then also set the test schedule. You then also tell Facebook how you will determine the winner. This will depend on your goal and how you're tracking success. For Imra, the campaign is focused on generating traffic to her website, and she's optimizing her campaign for link clicks. She decides that the ultimate test for her should help her understand which image generates her most results for the amount she's spending. So, cost per result is the right metric to help her determine the winner. Note that there's an indication here of the estimated power of the test. This is the likelihood that this test can detect a difference in your ads if there is actually a difference to detect. To have a good test, the power should be at least 80%. It means that in 80% of the cases, if you repeat the test, you'll find the same result. And if you think that the decision you're about to make is a really important one and one that you plan to base many decisions on, I suggest you go for a power that's over 90%. You can increase the power of your test by increasing the budget or the time you're running the ads. Both will increase the number of ad impressions, which will give you more actions to compare in each group. Imra has now completed all the steps to create this test. As you've probably seen during the test creation, there are other variables Imra could have tested. First, she could have varied other parts of the creative, like the text or the call to action. She could also have kept the ad the same, but changed the target audience, which could help understand how effective the ads are at reaching different audiences or demographics. For example, Imra could add or remove certain regions, or compare an interest-based core audience with a custom audience. You can also vary delivery optimization. This allows you to compare campaigns with or without campaign budget optimization. So it's basically comparing whether your manual distribution of your budget across ad sets is better than letting the machines do the work through campaign budget optimization. And finally, you can vary the placement you choose for the ads. For example, you can choose automatic placements and compare it to placements you specifically pick. It's best practice to only vary one variable at a time. And you should make sure that your test has enough power so you will get a reliable result. To achieve that, you should make sure that you have enough budget for the campaign and that you run the campaign long enough, ideally 2 weeks or longer. And if you can, it's a good idea to keep testing as you build new campaigns. Use the winner of your test as the new baseline and test against another version to see whether you could further optimize your campaign. Let's go back to Imra. Her test results came back and she learned, to the team's surprise, that the ad with the close-up image was the winner. In the campaign she ran with this test, she had targeted people in cities in the Netherlands. But Imra was wondering what would happen if she targeted the same ad to people in cities in Belgium. Shipping costs to Belgium were the same for her, so if she got better results in Belgium, she might spend more of her budget there. So Imra decided to run her traffic-focused campaign again. She used the image with a close-up of the flower for her ad and set up an A/B test. This time, she chose to vary the audience for her ad. She targeted the A ad set to people in cities in the Netherlands and the B set to people in cities in Belgium. She kept everything else the same. When results came back, A was the winner with the lowest cost per result, or in other words, Imra got more traffic to her site from people in the Netherlands than from people in Belgium for the budget she spent. As soon as Imra got those results, she decided to keep the campaign running, targeting people in the Netherlands only. As you can see from this example, A/B testing is a really great tool to have in your toolbox as an advertiser. It helps you to answer simple questions you may have, and it can take the guesswork out of building an ad. And since A/B tests are built into most ad platforms, it's usually really easy to set them up and make them part of your campaigns. In our next video, let's take a look at what the results of an A/B test look like. You've learned what A/B tests are and how they're used. In this video, we'll go over what the results of A/B tests look like and the next steps you can take based on those results. A/B tests have a pretty simple design, and while executing them well involves careful planning, the heavy lifting for A/B tests in advertising really happens on the platform side. That's where the careful selection and assigning of people into different groups on a random basis happens. As an advertiser, you just have to tell the platform which variable you want to alter. It's probably no surprise then that the results of A/B tests are also quite simple and straightforward. There are typically two main parts to your results. First, you'll learn who the winner of your test is. In advertising, the winner is the ad that led to the lowest cost per result. Second, you'll get information on the power of your test. In other words, how good your test was and how confident you can be in the results. This is usually expressed in a confidence level, similar to the confidence level we talked about in our previous lesson on experiments. Let's take a look at Kala and Ivy. We'll focus on the reports Imra got after running an A/B test on Facebook. Remember how Imra ran an A/B test to determine which one of the images for her ad would perform best in a traffic-focused campaign? After Imra's test stopped running, she got an email from Facebook with the results of the test. She can also find the results through Ads Manager or in the Experiments tool on Facebook. Here is what the results look like. Imra has a clear winner here. The B version of the ad, the one with a close-up of the flower, had a much lower cost per link click than version A of the ad. So B is the winner. Imra also learns from this report that her test has a confidence level of 93%. In other words, there's a 93% chance that B will be the winner if she were to repeat the test with the same settings. So it looks like Imra's test was powerful and she can have confidence in the results. We like to see a confidence level of 80% or above, so 93% is pretty good. Now, if you find that the confidence level is lower, you can increase the power of your test by increasing your budget or the length of your test. If you give your campaign more time and resources, it will generate more impressions and there will thus be more observations in your test, making it easier to achieve a reliable result. Once you've had a chance to evaluate your results, you know the winner of the test and you're confident that the test was good, what's next? Well, Facebook will prompt you and ask you whether you would like to shift all your budget for the campaign you ran the test for to the winning ad set. Choosing to do this makes the losing ad set stop running. Only the winning version of the ad is then served. If you have a winner and if you have high confidence in your results, it's a good idea to go ahead and stop running the losing version of the ad. I'd also recommend that you don't stop here though. Once you have a winner from an A/B test, it's still possible that there may be an even better execution for your ad campaign. So why not try another A/B test? This is an especially good idea if you have a strong hypothesis that another version of the ad might perform better. For Imra, who now knows the close-up flower image performs better than the bouquet, it may be worth testing whether changing the copy would help her improve the ad even more. So she could make the winning ad her new A version and create a B version with different copy. You should use what you learned to improve your future campaigns. Imra now knows that a close-up image of a flower can work better than a bouquet to attract traffic to her website. This may prompt her to try a few more ads with different close-ups or with other images that are different from the usual bouquets she's been showing. I encourage you to plan A/B tests for your campaigns when you can. It's a good practice. You'll learn from it and it will help you to further optimize. We'll often refer to this practice as using a test and learn strategy. Countless companies have found that it is a great way to advance. So far, we've learned that you can use experiments to evaluate the effectiveness of your advertising campaigns, and that A/B testing can help you optimize within a campaign. These are great techniques to evaluate the performance of your ads on one advertising platform. But your marketing strategy usually calls for advertising on different platforms. For instance, you may decide to market on Facebook as well as YouTube. And you may even throw in a TV ad. When you are evaluating the results of your marketing, this will bring up an extra challenge. How do you know which of these campaigns had the most impact on your results? Did people buy the product you were advertising because they saw your TV ad or because they saw your ad on Facebook? You could, of course, argue that it doesn't matter as long as you see good results, but that's a bit short-sighted. Of course, you would like to be able to improve and optimize your campaign. If some of the money you're spending is not really contributing to results, you would like to know that so you can stop spending. And if something works particularly well, you'd probably want to repeat that in the future and spend less on the platforms that did not work as well. There are measurement methods that focus on the contribution of different marketing channels to your end result. And in this lesson, you learn about them: media mix modeling and attribution modeling. Let's start with media mix modeling, sometimes called marketing mix modeling, in this video. Imagine you work in the marketing department of a large electronics company like LG or Sony, and you're responsible for the marketing of its flat-screen TVs. You've been asked to propose a marketing plan for the coming year and a budget that details how you'd like to spend your marketing dollars. To do this, you want to understand how different marketing actions like TV advertising, promotions, Facebook advertising, advertising on YouTube, and so on, affected last year's sales. Marketing mix modeling can help you analyze last year's data to understand what worked, predict what will work in the future, and plan how to best spend your money next year to improve the results. Here's how it works. You would first collect data related to any previous marketing action. And more specifically, you would look at data on how much you spent and what results you got. For instance, how much money did you spend on TV ads and how many people saw your ad as a result? How much was spent on promotions and how many purchases resulted? How much money did you invest in Facebook ads and how many conversions did you get? And so on. Note that the results data you get from different platforms are going to be different. In some cases, you'll collect a number of views, like in TV ads, for instance. In other cases, a number of purchases, and so on. All that data will then be cleaned, categorized, and analyzed using a marketing mix model. The result of this analysis will show you the ROI of each channel, or the percentage contribution of each channel or marketing activity on your final result. A marketing mix model is a mathematical equation that shows the statistical relationship between variables and a KPI. In other words, it's an analysis that shows the relationship between the investments you made and the final outcome. Marketing mix models use linear regression, which may ring a bell to some of you. How the analysis itself is done is outside the scope of this course, and most marketers will rely on statisticians or data analysts to help them with this. Very often, they'll enlist the help of an agency or a research firm to do the analysis for them. So let's go back to our example. You're working on a marketing budget for the flat-screen TVs for LG, and you use marketing mix modeling to help you inform your budget allocations. You would most likely step to a research group to help you. They would collect cost and results data for all marketing channels you used over the past year. They may also add a few other variables that could have had an influence on sales, like seasonality, big promotions you ran, etc. All that data forms the input for the marketing mix model. The research agency analyzes the data and comes back to you with a report that tells you what the return on investment was for each one of the channels you used and how much each channel contributed to your final results. From these results, you might learn that the contribution of your Facebook ads was much higher than the contribution for the TV campaign, for instance. On the basis of this insight, you then adjust your budget proposal for next year. You might suggest putting a smaller portion of the budget into TV and a larger chunk into ads on Facebook. There are a few things you should keep in mind, though, when you think about using media mix modeling. Because media mix modeling uses a variety of datasets from different channels where information may not all be immediately available, in contrast to online media, the information collection can be long and complex. Moreover, the modeling approach is typically iterative, and building a model takes time. As a result, marketing mix modeling is a method that takes a long time to execute. you'll find that marketing mix modeling is typically used by larger brands with larger marketing budgets and who are spending across multiple channels. They do this type of analysis on historical data about once a year. Over time, it gives them a solid, high-level understanding of which channels work well for them. Next, we'll take a look at another approach to assessing marketing outcomes across different channels: attribution modeling. So far, we've looked at one way to measure the effect of marketing in different channels on results: media mix modeling. We learned in the last video how media mix modeling can give you high-level insights into which channels and marketing actions work best for your brand. We also saw how it uses historical data and how the analysis can take quite a while. So, media mix modeling isn't exactly a method that delivers you immediate results, and it's not the ideal approach if you need to quickly adjust and optimize your marketing strategy. There's another method marketers use that gives you faster insights and that can even deliver some real-time results to help you adjust your marketing mix. That method is attribution modeling. Let's look at how it works in this video. Let's imagine a woman named Kathy. Kathy's interested in buying a new mattress. While she's scrolling through her Facebook news feed, she sees an ad for a Purple mattress. She's never heard of the company, but the ad says that it has special technology and makes superior mattresses. Later that evening, Kathy sees another ad for Purple on her laptop. She clicks on the ad to read a bit more about the new mattress technology. The next day, Kathy sees another ad for Purple when she's reading news on her phone. She also sees a video ad on YouTube. Finally, Kathy's reading an article in the New York Times and sees yet another Purple ad. 2 days later, she visits the Purple website and buys a mattress. As Kathy moved through her customer journey, she came into contact with many different ads. And most likely, all these ads had some effect on Kathy's decision. If you're a marketer at Purple, you'd like to know which one of your ads worked best. So, how do you answer that question? Attribution is the measurement solution that many marketers rely on to answer these types of questions. Attribution is the process of assigning credit to touch points along a customer's conversion path. By understanding which of your ads deserves credit for leading a customer to take an action, like making a purchase, you can better measure the effectiveness of your ads and make decisions for future planning and optimization. This insight can help you understand whether you invested in the right advertising channels. And by understanding which of the channels worked best, you can make decisions to redistribute your budget in the future. Before digging into how attribution works, let's take a closer look at what the output of an attribution tool could look like and how results are typically used. Here's a hypothetical example. Imagine you're a marketer and you ran advertising campaigns on these different channels: Google, Google Display Network, Facebook, Trade Doubler, and Criteo. Your attribution tool may show you that the ads you ran on Google contributed most to your results, in this case a weight of 30%. Next are Google Display, which contributed 20%, and Facebook also 20%, and so on. You also see the ROI, or the return on investment, here. Again, Google is highest, Facebook is next. Note that the ROI is different from the weight, since it takes into account how much you paid for the ads. The weight of Google Display may be higher, but the ads were more expensive, so that makes the ROI lower than the ROI for the Facebook ads in this case. Those were your observations for Q1. Now you can use this information to inform your marketing strategy for Q2. Since you learned that Google and Facebook had great ROI, you can increase your investment in those channels. For instance, you could put 40% of your budget into Google ads, 30% into Facebook ads, and less into the other channels. Attribution is mostly used to evaluate the impact of online media channels on a purchase. Of course, you can also use it across online and offline channels like TV, for instance, but since the data is not always as easy to get by, the result from this type of cross-channel analysis are not as immediate. You can use both paid and non-paid media as input for your attribution analysis. Or in other words, you can look at the effect of advertising as well as organic social media posts, for instance. Well, that sounds a lot like what you do with media mix modeling, right? But here's the difference. With attribution modeling, you will decide on a model in which you're going to credit the different marketing channels before you start analyzing. You will think about the customer journey and make some assumptions about which parts of your marketing you believe have the biggest effect on the final sale. So, in our example for Kathy and the purple mattress, you might say, I believe that the very first ad Kathy saw and the last ad before she decided to buy are the ones that really made the sale happen. So, your model would be one where the first ad and the last ad share all the credit for the conversion. The model you decide on is the attribution model. So, attribution is a method with these components. First, the input data, information about the ads a person saw and whether they clicked on them or took action. And then second, a model that is used to assign a value to the different touchpoints. The output is a value for each touchpoint that reflects the impact it had on the conversion. The accuracy of attribution results depends on the quality of the data input, but also the accuracy of the model. In other words, how closely the model reflects reality. And that part is key. Let's take a closer look at the attribution model, or the model that determines how the different touchpoints will get credit. Most attribution analysis will use what we call rules-based models. In rules-based models, you select the rule that determines how conversions should be allocated to ad touchpoints. A very commonly used model is the last click attribution model. It gives 100% credit to the last click from a person before a conversion took place. Even if a person saw and clicked on many ads before that, the model still assumes that the last ad the person clicked on is solely responsible for the sale. While this model is popular, marketers agree that it's not a very accurate representation of reality. For the majority of conversions, it takes more than one touchpoint for people to convert. Hence, models that give credit to more than one touchpoint are considered to be more accurate. Last touch models, like last click models, also consider only one touchpoint, but in this case, there's no need for a click. This model gives 100% credit to the last ad a person interacted with before a conversion, whether the person just saw the ad or clicked on it. In even credit models, equal credit is given to the touchpoints, impressions and clicks that led to a conversion. The time decay model gives credit to touchpoints, clicks or impressions based on how recently they happened. This model gives more credit to touchpoints that happened more recently, so closer to the conversion. Another approach is the positional model. In this model, first and last touchpoints, whether they are clicks or impressions, are given more credit, while the credit for the remaining touchpoints in the middle is divided equally. Then there's the first click attribution model, which gives 100% credit for a conversion to the first click on the conversion path. The first touch attribution model is similar. It gives 100% credit for a conversion to the first click that happened in the conversion path, but if there is no click, then it will credit the conversion to the first impression. When you use attribution analysis in platforms like Google Analytics or Facebook, you get to select the model you want to apply to your data. But it's not always clear which model best applies to your situation. How would you decide between all these models? You really have to understand what influences your users most, and that isn't always easy. That's why you may want to rely on a statistical model rather than one of these rule-based models. Statistical models take a different approach. In statistical or math-based models, you let the data speak and you don't decide on a model ahead of time. Statistical models use all the available data to determine which ads impact results. This data-driven attribution model then assigns fractional credit for a conversion to touchpoints based on their estimated incremental impact. So, instead of using your intuition to choose a rule, a statistical model uses the available data to figure out which touchpoints have most influence. Statistical models are more robust and often better at reflecting the reality. Facebook has an attribution tool that you can use to evaluate the impact of different online marketing channels on your results. You can choose your rule-based model to analyze your data, or you can even use a statistical model if you're only looking at the effect of different Facebook channels, like Instagram, Messenger, and so on. Let's look at an example of how marketers might use attribution. Let's go back to Kala and Ivy. During the summer, Imra ran campaigns across Facebook and Instagram with the goal to get people to subscribe to her new weekly flower delivery service. The campaign used a variety of ads. On Instagram, she primarily focused on creating awareness for the service with video ads that explained how the service works and different image ads showcasing the seasonal bouquets. Imra also used Facebook to show ads with a coupon. Imra is now preparing the advertising budgets for the coming year, and given the success of the flower delivery service, she wants to increase marketing spending. She's now evaluating what the focus of her campaign should be. She decides to use the Facebook attribution tool. When using the default last touch attribution model, she finds that the ads on Facebook with the embedded coupon are driving all the conversions. So, she could conclude that it would be best to put all the advertising dollars in a similar campaign next year. Imra understands that the ad on Facebook with a promo attached would not have been nearly as effective without the awareness generated by the other campaigns. So, she decides to take another look at her attribution model. Instead of using a last touch model, she uses the even credit model. Applying that model shows that the awareness ads on the path to purchase were indeed important to generate conversions. So Imra decides to include another awareness campaign for the coming year. Changing the attribution model helped Imra understand the influence of her campaigns. But it would have been even better had she used a statistical or data-driven model. That way, she would not rely on her intuition of how the influence of different ads may be spread along the customer's journey. You can use Facebook attribution to do this type of analysis, but in many cases, you will find that marketers will rely on data scientists or research agencies to help them out with this. Measuring advertising effectiveness across channels is quite complex, and getting expert help can at times be necessary. As you've probably noticed as we went through this video, there are a few complicating factors when measuring across platforms, which have to do with how readily the data is available for each channel and how reliable the data really is. In our next video, we'll look at the essence of these complexities. When advertising first went digital, there was incredible excitement around the measurement opportunities associated with it. When people click on an ad or interact in any way with content online, their actions are registered, And the resulting data allow for the granular reporting and analysis we've discussed in this course so far. But by now, you probably also read between the lines that data collection, measurement and analysis online isn't always as easy as it may seem. It comes with a few challenges. And while we have some ways to overcome these challenges, it's good to be aware of them, especially when you're measuring across platforms like we discussed in the previous video. In this video, we'll take another look at the challenges you should be aware of. For the sake of this video, I'm going to categorize the challenges into two different themes. First, to get a good read into what happens along the customer journey, you need to be able to measure behavior and ad exposure on different platforms and devices. And second, you have to connect the behavior you see to one individual and their customer journey. Let's talk about the different platforms and devices first. When we want to track advertising effectiveness across the whole customer journey, we need to be able to monitor behavior on the different platforms where people can convert. For instance, if you sell a product on a mobile app, on the web, and in your store, you want to make sure you have a way to capture all the sales. If you're trying to evaluate the effect of your advertising on all sales, you'll have to make sure that all sales are indeed included, which also means including the offline sales. Let's think about what that means for a business like Calla & Ivy. For instance, if Imra wants to understand the effect of her advertising for the fall reads, she would have to monitor how many reads people bought online through her website and her mobile app, and how many she sold in the store. If Imra plans to use Facebook attribution, she'll need to make sure that Facebook can collect all the data for every sale. To track the sales on the website, she could use the Facebook Pixel. The Pixel would send information back to Facebook on every sale through a Pixel event on the thank you page. To track the sales through the app, Imra would need to make sure the Facebook SDK is integrated in her mobile app. The SDK would then allow her to track the app sales. For the offline sales, Imra could integrate her offline sales system, or the system she uses to track sales in her store, to Facebook through the Offline Conversions API. That's an automated way to integrate the offline events into the Facebook platform. To get this to work, she'd need the help of a software developer though. But once it's set up, Imra will see information on the offline sales in her Facebook reports. This will definitely help her track the effectiveness of her advertising. The second measurement challenge is connecting all the touch points to one person. When a person visits your website and also visits your app along their journey to purchase, you'd want to understand that that was the same person. Without that insight, it's difficult to understand the contribution of different touch points to your results. Historically, advertisers have relied on cookies to connect a sequence of touch points to a person. Cookies are pieces of code that get added to a person's web browser when they visit your site and when they see your ads. The cookie then lets your advertising or measurement platform know which ads people interacted with or saw. This solution works reasonably well if you assume that all interactions happen on a computer, but cookies don't work well on mobile devices and they don't work in mobile apps. As a result, it's challenging for advertisers to connect the data from a person's interactions with ads on mobile devices with that same person's interactions on computers. Platforms like Facebook leverage a persistent login and a unique identifier associated with a person's Facebook account. When a person sees Facebook ads on mobile or on the web, Facebook can connect the dots. Together with the Facebook Pixel, the SDK, and the Conversions API, this approach allows you to tie actions directly to real people. Using this approach reduces the chances of missing touchpoints in the conversion path, and it allows to relate all the touchpoints back to the one person. It's good to keep all these data-related challenges in mind as you plan how you will measure the effectiveness of your campaigns. It will help you make sure that you put all the tracking mechanisms in place so you can connect the dots later. Of course, if you work in a larger company or at an advertising agency, you may work together with the research or data analyst department to help you track effectiveness of your marketing. And in some cases, you'll be working with third parties to help you measure. Make sure that you discuss these challenges with them ahead of time, so you are aware of how they will help you track across platforms and link the touchpoints back to an individual. Congratulations! You finished another week in this course on measurement and optimization for social media marketing. This week, we focused on the optimization part of measurement and optimization. More specifically, you learned how you can use A/B tests to optimize a social media marketing campaign. And you also learned how you can use media mix modeling and attribution studies to optimize budgets across different marketing channels. When you run social media advertising campaigns and digital marketing campaigns, I'm sure you'll find that there's always something to optimize. There are always ways to improve your campaigns or lower your cost per result. And these optimization techniques can help you answer your specific advertising questions and improve your campaigns. Knowing how these different optimization methods work will make it easier to know when to use them. And I'm sure you'll find great opportunities to do so moving forward. We've talked a lot about how to measure the outcome of your marketing efforts and how to evaluate whether your campaigns were effective. You can set up reports, use dashboards, conduct experiments, and perform analysis. But there will come a point where you have to summarize your findings and insights and communicate it to other members in your team or maybe to a client. In this video, we'll focus on how you can best approach this. Imagine you've set up your campaigns, you've run your metrics, and you have your findings. And now you've been asked by your manager to present your results to senior leadership. What do you show them? Create a presentation that's going to tell the story of your campaign from start to finish. Not just the results, because they would be meaningless outside of the context of the campaign. You wouldn't talk about how you made $10,000 from the campaign without talking about what actions you took to get there, what customer behavior resulted in the $10,000, and whether $10,000 in sales was a good result. Your presentation also isn't going to be a passive look at slides and slides of data. You want to tell the narrative of what you did and show a through line from goals to campaign to results to implications for the future. In addition to narrating what actions you took and what the data said, your job is also to draw conclusions from the data, explain how you got those conclusions, and show how those conclusions will affect decisions going forward. 10 slides of data to senior leadership won't be helpful, but 10 slides telling them how your actions affected their bottom line and increased sales will. Think of your presentation as following a story, or as loosely following the scientific method, where you come up with a question or goal around a set of actions, you execute the actions, gather data and metrics around the actions, and then create new questions and goals. In our story, you start with a SMART goal. You create a campaign, you evaluate the results of the campaign, and you formulate insights. These insights can be the inspiration for a new campaign to achieve a new goal. First, you always want to start with the goals you determined for the campaign, as this will set up the premise of the story moving forward. Were you looking to increase brand awareness, or gain 25% more sales during the quarter, or see if you can get 5,000 new unique visitors to your website during a specific month? Starting with your goals and why you set them will give you a baseline to build from as you tell your campaign story. Next, explain how those goals turned into campaign objectives, which will move the story forward towards what actions you took in your campaigns. If you were looking to increase brand awareness, you made a plan for an awareness campaign. If you wanted to gain 25% more in sales, you made a plan for a conversion campaign. If you want to get more visitors to the site, you made a plan for a consideration campaign. By explaining this, it shows how you turned your goals into actionable items. Additionally, now would be the time to speak about the KPIs you are going to track in order to measure the success of your campaign. For brand awareness, you'll track ad recall lift. For sales, you'll track specific conversion events. For more visitors, you'll track link clicks, landing page views, or reach. This shows that you were thinking about your results even before you set up your campaign and knew which metrics you would eventually track to assess your results. Now is the time to talk about the specifics of your campaigns. Your audience probably won't need to get in the weeds about bidding processes, the various ad placement options, or all the different settings you tweaked in Ads Manager. But there are a few things you definitely want to include. Show the creative you used. It helps people a lot if they can visualize what you are referring to, and everyone likes to see the final ads you showed. An overview of the characteristics of the audience you delivered it to. On which platforms it ran, how long it lasted, and finally, how much you spent on it. This will help your audience understand the actions you took according to your goals and objectives without losing them in the details. Now you'll present your results. It's always useful to go over where you gathered your data from. Ads Manager, Google Analytics, etc. So your audience knows that you covered your bases in terms of gathering data to analyze. Also, if you ran any experiments, like A/B or holdout tests for instance, or extra analysis like an attribution study, you would want to let them know that too. You won't present every data point you have, but you'll focus on the ones that really matter. These are the metrics you should include if you have them. First, your KPIs, basically the metrics that represent your results. Your costs, it's important that you let people know what you spend. Your return on ad spend, or ROAS, and maybe, if you have it, also ROI. And finally, any effectiveness data. If you conducted a holdout or brand survey test or used media mix modeling or attribution, discuss those results as well. Next, it's important to tell the story your data tells you. To do that, I suggest you ask yourself the following questions and answer them in your presentation. First, did I reach my goal? And did I do so for a reasonable cost? The answer may be yes or no, and that's okay. Next, ask yourself whether there's any particular audience or any part of your campaign that seems to stand out in terms of results. Maybe you did not reach your overall goal, but you reached it among a certain group. Maybe a certain ad worked better with some people than with others. Next, evaluate what you learned and how that insight will influence your next steps. Let's look at a few examples. Imagine you find that you didn't meet your brand awareness goal. You can show how, while your awareness campaign had a large reach, recall was low in general. But when you break down your results a bit more, you find that for one particular demographic, recall was a lot higher. Now you can find out why the brand resonated with them and not with others, and whether that segment could be your new target audience. So, the money you spent on a brand awareness campaign might not have given you the results you wanted, but might have given you insight that will produce much more sales later on if you target those customers correctly. In another example, you may find that you hit your website traffic goal, but in a Facebook attribution study, you found that some of your organic Facebook posts had a substantial effect on the results and were responsible for a lot of the traffic. Explain how, in the future, you will make organic posts on your Facebook page a larger effort and how you may try to increase the following for the page now that you've seen how much of an effect the posts can have. Or, in yet another example, you hit your goal of 25% increase in sales. When you dig into the data, you can see that the increase was not due to new customers you targeted in one ad set. Rather, it was related to existing customers you retargeted with a different kind of messaging. In fact, you realized that your company had had a cart abandonment issue, and it looks like you were able to solve that and use that to your advantage to increase sales. In the future, you'll make retargeting a core part of your campaign strategy. As you can see from these examples, when you tell your data story or convey your insights, it's important that you look beyond the average data points and try to assess different segments or breakdowns of your data. That will help to reveal the full story and develop real insights that can help you in the future. To do that, these 3 steps will help. First, evaluate whether you reached your goal. Then, break down the results by audience characteristics or segments, and then apply the insights you find to steps you can take in the future. Be sure to present your data in clear, engaging visual ways that communicate your results. We'll go over some best practices for data visualization in the next lesson. Finally, expand on your future planning. Unless you had a highly successful campaign, you won't run the same campaigns exactly as you did before. Show you'll set up new goals and objectives based on what you've learned. Or, if you have similar goals, state how you would do things differently in the future to increase results and reduce costs based on what you know now. Including all of these elements into your presentation will allow you to give a comprehensive overview of your goals, objectives, plans for measurement, actions taken, what you found in the data, and what the next steps forward are. Following this framework will also ensure that you're telling an easy-to-follow, complete story of your campaign to your audience. In our last video, we discussed how to present your campaign results. Now, let's put ourselves in the shoes of the team that manages the marketing efforts for Kalla and Ivy. And Imra, the owner, wants us to give her an overview of the last campaign, which was a big holiday campaign. Our marketing plan pre-holiday season was to encourage people to sign up for subscriptions rather than come in for one-off sales. Having a subscription would make buying bouquets for the holidays cheaper in the long run and easier. Those with subscriptions also get guaranteed one-day delivery and they get access to the online classes Imra offers. Customers can sign up with an initial fee of $50, so even if they opt out after 1 month, we still get a month's worth of revenue, though most subscribers stay on for longer. Imra had talked with us about the goals of the campaign up front, but Imra let us run with it and now wants to hear about what happened. Let's build a slide deck for our presentation. These days, there are a few different software programs you can use to create your presentation, but we're going to use Google Slides. In order to look professional, we're going to use our branded Kalla and Ivy template, which includes the brand's color palette, fonts we use in our marketing, and a logo at the bottom. First, we'll put together a slide with our goals. While Imra already knows this goal, in order to set the foundation for our presentation, we'll go over it again. The goal we wanted to achieve was 200 new subscribers during October and November. Next, we'll create a slide that includes our campaign objective. Because our goal is to have people purchase a subscription, our objective will be generating conversions. We can talk a little bit about what that means and how we define a conversion. In this case, the purchase of a subscription. On our next slide, we'll mention the KPIs we want to track, because we'll learn about our results through those KPIs. For this campaign, we want to track actual purchases or subscriptions, which happen through our website or through the app. Anticipating Imra's question of how we can actually measure this, we can mention how we have the Facebook Pixel installed on the website and the SDK is integrated in the app and how that will help us track. If someone purchases something, it will report back to the Facebook platform, so these purchases will appear in our Ads Manager account. Now we'll talk about the Ads Manager campaign we set up. Imra doesn't need to know every detail we set, but a higher level view will be enough. First, we show Imra the creative we used. We can tell her that we had these two different beautiful ads and that we decided to start to run the campaign with both ads. We used A/B testing to evaluate which of these images was best. Then we explain who the target audience was for our campaign. We used a core audience, and these are the main characteristics. Finally, we show what platforms we ran the campaign on. In this case, both Facebook and Instagram, when we ran it and how much we spent on it. Finally, we get to the meat of our presentation, how our campaign did and the insights we discovered. First, we'll start with a summary slide of our results. We want to include the KPIs again, the cost, the results, and the return on ad spend. We gained 150 new subscribers. We didn't quite hit our target of 200, but by taking a closer look at the revenue generated and the return on ad spend, we can further assess whether we're happy with the results for the $1,000 we spent. For ROAS, we look at the amount of revenue generated based on the amount we spent. We're realizing an initial $7,500 from our sign-ups, or 150 times $50 for each subscription. That would be a ROAS of 7.5. Since subscribers tend to stay on, we'll add in the expected lifetime value as well. This will give us an extra perspective on whether this campaign was successful. After all, people who subscribe are probably going to stay with us longer than just that initial month. Let's assume that they stay with us for 6 months on average. So the expected LTV of a customer is $300. So our return from this ad campaign would actually be 150 times $300, or $45,000. With a campaign cost of $1,000, this would actually mean a ROAS of 45. After this data summary, it's important to tell the full story of our campaign and highlight any other findings. We have a few things to highlight. First, we'll add a graph of our actual daily subscriptions to show that most of them happened during the month of November. This is an important finding. Maybe the closer we get to the holidays, the higher the probability people will actually buy. So in the next campaign, we may want to distribute our budget differently over the months. We also want to show that we discovered most of the subscriptions came from women between 35 and 44. Another insight that can help us to adjust the targeting of future campaigns. We also learned in our A/B test that an image with a person who receives flowers performed better for this campaign than an image featuring only the flower bouquet. While we realize that this may not be the case for all campaigns, we now know that if we continue to advertise the subscription, this image is probably the better choice. Finally, we'll wrap up with some ways to iterate on our campaigns for the future, including targeting the demographic that gave us the most subscriptions, women between 35 and 44, concentrating ads during the month of November, and further iterating on ads that feature women receiving flowers. Of course, it's also a good idea to keep seeking out ways to reduce our cost of conversion so we can reach our ambitious goals in our next campaign. That's all we need for presenting to Imra, and our slide deck is simple, easy to understand, and comprehensive. In our next lesson, we'll learn a bit more about how to visualize the data and techniques on how to give a presentation. In our last lesson, we talked about how you can tell the story of your campaign. To tell that story, you'll rely heavily on data. You'll show the results of the campaign and you'll highlight any findings from your data analysis. Data can make your story much more powerful. But in order to make the data really tell the story, it's important that you present it in a way that highlights what you'd like your audience to focus on. In this video, I'll give you some tips and go over best practices for when you put your presentations together. When you prepare your presentation, think about which data points you're going to present. Then you can reflect on the data visualization, which is the way you'll present your data. As you've probably heard, an image is better than 1,000 words. That's true for data too. An image can tell a story and makes it much easier for people to digest the data. With most database or data analysis software, you will get options to summarize your data in a chart. A first decision you'll often need to make is which type of chart to choose. A bar chart, a line graph, a pie chart? You may think a simple bar chart would be the way to go, but sometimes a bar chart can be confusing for certain data types. So, how do you decide? Here are a few simple rules to keep in mind. A bar or a column chart is a great way to represent data that falls into different categories, like preferences. For instance, you'd use a bar chart to show the number of people that like version A of an ad versus the number of people that like version B of an ad. Bar charts also make comparisons easy, like comparing data for different years or comparing data against a goal. In our case, it's a good way to show the results we achieved compared to the goal we set. A pie chart is a great way to show how a whole is divided into parts. It could be a great way to show demographic distributions. For instance, if you have to break down an audience by age, the whole pie is your complete audience and the different portions represent different age groups. A line graph works well if you want to show how numbers change over time. It also makes it easy to compare trends too. Keep this in mind as you select which type of chart you'll use to present your data. And ask yourself whether the chart you chose makes the story you want to tell clearer. Now let's walk through a few more tips. As you're adding your charts and graphs, you should first think about how you can tell the data story visually. In other words, you may not need numbers and labels to communicate what you want to say. In fact, they might just get in the way. For example, these percentages may confuse the audience, and your concept can still be communicated without them. Look for ways to declutter your visuals as much as possible without losing the essential information. Your color choice will help communicate your story as well. As you put together your visualizations, think about using gradients of the same color, a branded color palette, or even color against grayscale to highlight different metrics. These can be great ways to draw the attention of your audience to the data points in your story that matter the most. Because you want your audience to be able to tell what's going on in your data at a glance, you should think about ways you can set your visuals. It's a good idea to make comparisons between two data points so the audience can easily see what's going on. Also, make the data easier to read by ordering it, either by size or incrementally, so that it makes sense to look at. Also, make sure that you're representing everything on the same scale. Make sure each point on your axis is evenly spaced out and with the right increment, like month to month or year to year. Charts and graphs can communicate the wrong information if the scale is off, or if the data doesn't show you the logical starting point. Like in this chart, for instance, where the y-axis doesn't start from 0. This inaccurately makes the sales increase seem very dramatic, when in reality it isn't. Don't try to play with the axis in the chart to make an effect look bigger than it really is. Let the data tell the story, but don't force the data to fit the story you would like to see. Not all of your data has to be in a chart or a graph. If you want to highlight specific data points, you can do that with a call-out. In some cases, that's easier than relying on your audience to find the main data point. How can you create these kinds of data visualizations? There are easy ways to do it in Google Sheets or Excel, which will take your raw data and visualize it for you. Then you can adjust the colors, declutter the graph, change how it appears, and drop it into your presentation. For advanced visualization, you might consider learning Tableau. Tableau is a robust data analytics and visualization tool that allows you to create customized visualizations that can more precisely tell your data story. Finally, as we indicated in our last lesson, be sure not to overwhelm people with data. Use the data points that are essential to tell your story and to deliver the insights your audience needs. In our next lesson, we'll go over how to deliver your presentation and tell the story of your findings. Giving a presentation can be daunting, even for the most experienced presenter, and most professionals will be expected to do it at some point in their career. From large company-wide presentations to smaller presentations just for your team, here are a few things to remember to not only make your presentation impactful and to get your message across, but to also mitigate those nerves that will inevitably arise. The most important thing you can do is to prepare. Think through who your audience is and what you want them to take away from your presentation. Think about what data you want to present to them, how to tell your data story, and how to visualize it in a unique way. Plan time in your schedule to think through those steps. Write out your talking points and create your presentation in Google Slides or PowerPoint or other presentation software. Planning out what you're going to say and how you're going to say it is half the battle. When you are preparing your presentation, it may be tempting to put everything you would like to tell your audience on your slides, but that's not a great idea. Essentially, you want your slides to simply highlight what you're speaking about, not to carry the weight of the presentation itself. You will be the storyteller, and your slides are there to support you and to stress the main points of your story. Use only keywords or short bullet points on your slides to do a simple visualization of what you're saying. Otherwise, if you have a ton of text, your audience will be focused on reading your slides and will stop paying attention to you. To help prevent you from putting too much text on your slides, keep your font size to 28 or bigger. Anything that's smaller can get hard to read on a slide, and that way you will stick to the main points. Focusing on highlights is also important for your visuals. Declutter them and use them to highlight what you're saying, or else your audience will be distracted trying to decipher your graphs. Also, don't read from your slides. Use the presenter notes feature to see your notes during a presentation, or have summaries or bullet points on note cards, or get to the point where you know what you want to say well enough to let your slides be a memory tool for you. When you start, open with something that will catch your audience's attention. A rhetorical question related to your findings, or a story, or an interesting fact. Grab the audience straight away and start them on the journey with you. Don't spend too much time on ramping up or introductions to the topic, as your audience may drift off. We talked in our previous lesson about a simple story framework, which will not only keep your audience engaged, but it'll help you move from point to point with confidence. Start with a problem you were trying to solve or what goal you wanted to hit. Then tell what actions you took. Explain what you found after you took those actions, and finish up telling how those findings will impact future decisions. Make your conclusion as impactful as your opening. In fact, Circle back to what you mentioned in your opening by either answering the questions, finishing the story, or adding an interesting fact the presentation showed. Always tell your audience you'll take questions at the end, and then do so. Nothing derails a presentation faster than stopping to answer questions in the middle that will probably be explained by your story. What about nerves? Nerves are normal and may actually help propel you through your presentation. Just remember that you'll be the most nervous just before the presentation, but those nerves will fade once you begin. Also, remember that most people won't notice that you're nervous at all. One way to mitigate nerves at the very beginning of a presentation is to have an anchor or something that grounds you so you can start. It might be pausing to take a deep breath, or deliberately taking a sip of water before you speak, or seeking out a friend in the audience. Completing this simple task can build your confidence before you even begin. Another way to mitigate your nerves will be to practice your presentation before you give it. You'll gain familiarity and confidence in what you'll say the day of. You can also practice intonation in various spots when you want to hit your point home, or see if anything just doesn't work or is too confusing when spoken aloud. I have given many presentations in my career, and very often I will practice my full presentation out loud at home. I find that it helps me a lot, and while I always think that I will easily roll through it, I often discover stumbling blocks by practicing. I really think it's worth it to go through this extra step, especially if it's for a presentation I'm a bit nervous about. Practicing will also give you a sense of how long your presentation is going to take. You most likely won't have an unlimited amount of time, and you don't want to find yourself running out of time having to rush through the end of your presentation. Time yourself and edit accordingly. Practicing will also help you decide on which movements to include as well. If you're giving your presentation while standing, don't grip the podium, but also don't wander and pace as you talk or talk with your hands, which may distract your audience. Some public speakers build deliberate movements, like a step forward into their presentation to highlight their points. When you're giving your presentation, don't talk quickly. You may do so because you're nervous and want to get through it, but the audience will notice and they may not keep up. Slow down. Allow for pauses to not only let the information sink in, but to calm yourself as you go. Slowing down and being deliberate in what you can say also eliminates distracting ums and ahs as well. Always be sure to maintain some kind of eye contact with the audience, or make the audience think you're maintaining some kind of eye contact. Having a friend in the audience or someone who is attentive and nodding along is always helpful to concentrate on, but pick a few people in different spots of the room and look back and forth between them. Or look just over their heads. This keeps the audience engaged and along for the journey. Even though you practiced and have a general sense of how long your presentation will go, always have some kind of clock inside so that you can adjust as needed and so that you can leave time for Q&A. Always be mindful of any tech issues that may pop up as well, and be sure to answer the following questions before your presentations. What's the room setup where you're going to be giving your presentation? Does it have a screen for your presentation? How will you get your presentation up on the screen? Will you have to bring your laptop and connect to the screen? Does the room have an in-room computer you need to use instead? If you'll be using the in-room computer, how will you pull up your presentation? Can you access the folder it's in? Do you have to email it to yourself? Can you access your email through the computer? Do you need to bring your presentation on a USB? Did you create your presentation on a Mac, yet in the room computer is a PC, so the format may be different? Will you have a remote slide advancer, or will you have to stand by the keyboard to advance your slides? If your presentation has video and audio, will it work? How would you adjust the volume? Chat with someone who's familiar with the room where you will be presenting so you can prepare yourself, and then walk through the presentation situation in your head and use this checklist. See where you might encounter any issues and try to solve them beforehand. Day off, always have a backup plan for loading your presentation. You don't want to be without it. In fact, I always carry a backup USB with the presentation, just in case I can't access it online. Once your presentation's complete, offer to send out a slide deck for anyone who wants to know more. And then make a plan to treat yourself to something nice for your accomplishment. Let's look at another example of a real company. We found a real flower business in Indonesia and decided to run an advertising campaign for them and put a presentation together of the results. First, let's meet Marlene, the owner of M Fresh Flowers in Indonesia.
Hi, my name is Marlene and I am a founder of M Fresh Flowers, an online shop based in Jakarta, Indonesia. I started my business 5 years ago. That was the time when I have more free time because my 2 children has left the house. I love flowers and plants and I mainly sell my arrangement online with the help of social media. When I started the business 5 years ago, my 2 daughters encouraged me to open an Instagram account. And personally, I was skeptical because I'm not familiar with social media. Then I spent more time to learn about Instagram, about social media to help grow my business. Surprisingly, the result was great. And I was quite surprised to get sales from a random person that I don't know from somewhere else in Indonesia. It really made my day. Social media really helped me to grow my business. I mainly use 3 social media channels. The first one is Instagram, and then followed by Facebook, and the third one is TikTok. I do it every day. What I try to share with my followers is fun facts. Sunflower, for example. What's the meaning of sunflowers? And why you should give sunflowers to your girlfriend or to your loved ones. Try to share fun facts in my stories, and my arrangement is in feed. People find us in Instagram and Facebook is through hashtag, through location, and through Instagram and Facebook ads. I'm using the ads manager from Facebook to control the Instagram ads. And I've been doing it several times with different target audience, with different budget, different location. It's just to test which one is the most effective approach. And so far, sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm not happy because it's a trial and error, I believe. Instagram, because Instagram is kind of like a showcase for my customer, previous customer or potential customers. They can just easily look what kind of arrangement is available. They can just point one arrangement, one pictures, and they contact me if they want to have a similar arrangement. I think I would like to invest more time in TikTok. For business, TikTok is not only for dancing. There are a lot of information, very interesting DIY, and a lot of tips. It's just a new game here, a new things that I need to learn. Hopefully it works. Don't be afraid to use social media as a tool to help you grow your business, because during my 5 years journey, I've been doing a lot of trial and error, and sometimes it's failed, but sometimes it's also very successful. So my advice, just try your best and keep doing your business through social media.
As you've heard in the video, Marleen is very eager to test new approaches to grow her business. We decided to give advertising on Instagram and Facebook a try for the new flower baskets that M Fresh Flowers creates. Let me walk you through our findings and how I'm putting them together in a presentation for Marleen and her team. Since the baskets are relatively new, we decided that it would be a good idea to start with a traffic campaign that leads people to the landing page on the M Fresh Flowers website that showcases the different basket designs. If we can drive some traffic to this page, people will become familiar with the brand and its offerings, and they may decide to come back to buy flowers for a special occasion at a later point. We decided on this goal after talking to Marleen. Increase basket landing page views by 10% for the first week of November. We agreed that we would run a campaign for 1 week and then look at the results and reevaluate. Our ad campaign objective is traffic. That corresponds to the goal we set, and we decided that our main KPI would be link clicks. We measured the link clicks using Facebook Ads Manager reporting. Of course, the link clicks should correspond to the landing page views for the page on M Fresh Flowers website that showcases the baskets. Here is the creative we decided to use. We used this ad with one image only, and we also created a carousel ad. Since we weren't sure exactly which one of these two ads would work best for the audience, we ran an A/B test. Here are the campaign settings we used in Ads Manager. We already said that our campaign objective was traffic. We chose an audience between 25 and 64 years old, and we decided to include both men and women. While Marleen has seen that most of her customers are women, she knows that men also like to buy flowers, often as gifts, so she asked us to keep them as part of the audience. And we targeted people who live in South Jakarta. We also decided to target people who like flowers, wine, and fashion. Marleen knows that her typical clients like to enjoy all these things, and she believes that this will help to put the ads in front of her target audience. For placements, we chose to run the campaign on Facebook and Instagram. We used a daily budget of $100 on the campaign, so that comes to a total of $700 for the week. So it's time to look at our results. Here's the Ads Manager report for our campaign. Let's evaluate the results and the costs. As you can see, our campaign resulted in 7,780 link clicks. We spent a total of $700, and Ads Manager calculated for us that our cost per result, or in our case, our cost per link click, is 9 cents. We put this information in the presentation for Marleen. With this result, we hit our goal, since each of these clicks results in a landing page view. And 7,780 landing page views is an increase by 13% over what the typical weekly number of page views is for the landing page. As such, this information is helpful and encouraging, but remember how we planned to have this first campaign function as a test of sorts, and how we would like to use insights from this campaign for future campaigns. So, what did we learn? First, let's look at whether we could break down our results some more. Let's start by looking at the audience. We targeted ads to both men and women, but we wanted to know whether there's a difference in the clicks we received from each. A breakdown in the Ads Manager report can help. Here's the overview for the results for men versus women. We see more clicks from women than from men. But we also see that the cost per result for both men and women is almost the same. That's a valuable insight, so we'll put that in our presentation for Marleen. Here's the slide we used. When we think about future campaigns, we recommend that Marleen keeps men included in the target audience. There may be less clicks, but if we're not paying more for those clicks, it's worth keeping men included. They may not buy flowers as frequently as women, but they do buy on special occasions, and it's worth it for Marleen to have some brand awareness among men when the time comes to gift some flowers. We're also curious to see what results look like for the different ad placements, more specifically Instagram and Facebook. So let's break down the results by platform. It looks like the cost per click for ads on Facebook and Instagram is very similar, so probably a good idea to keep both platforms included. In fact, we may want to try to include more platforms like Audience Network and Messenger. That gives more flexibility to Facebook to optimize our ads, and it may help to keep the costs per link click low. So, in our presentation, that's what we'll suggest to Marlene. Now let's look at the creative we used. We ran an A/B test to evaluate whether the ad with one image did better than the carousel ad. Here's the result of our experiment. Remember, you can find this in Ads Manager under the Experiments tool. We have a clear winner here. The ad with only one image performed better than the carousel ad. The power of the test is strong, so we can confidently say that the one-image ad works best for this campaign. That's great information, but I'm curious about whether there's anything else we could learn from the data about the carousel ad. Let's go back to the Ads Manager results and break them out by carousel card. It looks like the final card generated more clicks than the other cards in the ad. That could just be because it was the final card, but it could also mean that people really liked that image and that it made them click. It's hard to tell. I think that should be something we test next. We now know that one image ad works better, but we should really test whether we could improve our results by using a different image. In our presentation, we'll suggest to Marlene that she run another A/B test with a copy of the ad with this image from the carousel card that performed best. So here's our slide with recommendations for next steps. Keep running the campaign targeted to both men and women. Expand the platforms on which the campaign runs, as it may further optimize the results. Use a one-image ad, and use A/B testing to test whether the image that performed best in our carousel ad could outperform the image we used in the current campaign. With these insights, Marlene has actionable next steps that can help her to further optimize the campaign. As you can see from this example, telling the story of your campaign with data does not need to be complicated. If you follow this framework and focus on the data that matter most, you'll be able to summarize and present your findings and give your client or your team actionable next steps that will help them increase their marketing success. Congratulations! You've finished another week of learning about measurement and optimization. In the previous weeks, we talked a lot about how to measure the outcome of your marketing efforts and evaluate whether your campaigns are effective. But there'll come a point where you will have to summarize your findings and communicate it to other people, be they your team or a client. And now you know how to approach that challenge too. It's important that you're able to present your findings from your measurement and analysis efforts in a clear and concise way, so your audience can easily understand the main points. A good presentation can also inform your team or client on the best way to move forward. You now know how to tell a story with your data and findings. You know how to make the data speak and weave your findings together in a way that's memorable to your audience. And you also know how to visualize the data so your audience can easily understand the insights you're trying to communicate. When the day comes to give that presentation, keep the tips on how to prepare that we talked about in mind. If you do that, you can be confident that your presentation will be a success. Congratulations! You've finished the Measure and Optimize Social Media Marketing course. I'm really glad you stuck with me throughout this journey. Measurement isn't always the easiest topic to study, but I'm a firm believer in the power of data and how understanding measurement tools gives you a real leg up in the marketing profession. You have a great set of tools now that I'm sure will prove to be very helpful in your career. You now know how to evaluate whether you reached your marketing and business goals using common metrics to assess performance. You also know how to use experiments to evaluate the effectiveness of your brand awareness as well as conversion-focused campaigns with brand survey and holdout tests. And you know how to optimize within a campaign using A/B tests. And you understand which methods can be used to look at the contribution of different marketing channels on your results. This will allow you to further optimize the way you allocate your budget and to fine-tune your advertising strategy. And finally, you learned how to use data to tell the story of your campaign. You now have a framework you can use to create a presentation that clearly communicates the results of your campaign and all your hard work. If you're working your way through the Facebook social media marketing professional specialization, then this was your last course before you delve into your final project and the Facebook certification in our next course. I think you have all the skills and tools you need to be successful in that course and to start your career as a social media marketer. I'm really excited for you. Good luck. Now that you're ready with this course, what is next? This course is part of a larger program that prepares you for jobs in social media marketing. It consists of 6 courses and you just completed the 5th course. Now you know how to measure and evaluate the success of your social media marketing efforts. There's only one more course left now. In the final course, we won't cover anything new, but you'll get to practice your new skills in a project and will help you get ready for the Meta Digital Marketing Associate Certification exam. In the meantime, if you would like to get ready to apply for a job, we've created a course that will help you determine what you're looking for in a new job. Write your resume and cover letter and plan for networking and outreach to help you land your new role. You'll find all the links to the courses in the reading that follows, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the course you embark on next.